This one, because the camera's not really get you on this side.
Hello? Am I live? Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you. This is the New College of Florida Board of Trustees meeting, Thursday, January 1st. Start time's supposed to be 2 o'clock.
June.
I would ask for the New College's campus minister, Dwight Henry, to come forward, please. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Thank you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity to be here another time. Let us pray. Our great God of creation, who knows all things, and all things were created by him for him. We gather here today to do your will. Be our light and our shield. Continue to remind us, according to Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions. Give us a portion of your wisdom to lead and understanding to extend mercy and grace. Remind us to always consult and trust you in all that we do, because we are your vessel willing to serve your people. Remind us of Proverbs 3:5-6, to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and lean not to our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge him, and he will direct our paths. I pray this in your holy name. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you, Minister. If you would all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Justice for all.
Thank you all. Ms. Fitzpatrick, can we do the roll call and establish a quorum and confirm public notice of meeting, please?
Yes. Trustee Anderson,
Here.
Trustee Bauerlein,
Here.
Trustee Jaco,
Here.
Trustee Karp,
Here.
Trustee Keenan,
Here.
Trustee Kessler,
I see him.
Trustee Kessler, you're muted. We see ya.
Here.
Trustee Mackey. Here. Trustee Reed.
Here.
Trustee Rufo.
Here.
Trustee Ruiz will be just a few minutes late. Trustee Spalding.
Here.
Chair Jinks.
Here.
Vice Chair Cristaldi.
Here.
We have a
Thank-
quorum present.
Thank you. I'd just like to welcome our two new trustees, Professor Amy Reed, who is the faculty representative trustee, and Joe Jacote, who was just appointed by Governor DeSantis. Thank you both for being here. At this time, we are going to call for public comment. It's New College's policy that if you wanted to speak at this meeting, you must have registered at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We have a list of 16 people who are registered for public comment. Each commenter will have 1 minute to speak, and you must speak towards the action that you identified when you requested to speak. Ms. Fitzpatrick, can you call up the names of the people who have asked to make public comment today?
Yes. So first up, we have Alyssa Mitchell, then David Land, then Rodrigo Diaz.
Ready?
Please, yes. Thank you.
My son is a first-year student at New College who won't be returning in the fall. He was one of 3 National Merit Scholars on campus this year. I know this is good news for the new board members, part of your plan to have current students self-select out to make more room for all the new students, the hundreds of new students who are applying now that you're in charge. But it is bad news for the taxpayers of Florida, who just spent the last 13 years paying for my son's public education, only to have him now leave and contribute to another state's economy and tax base. This is a wrenching loss for my son and my family, but it's a bigger loss for you in this school you think you're going to build here. I wish tremendous success to every faculty member, student, and staff person who can remain here. But for the new board members, I wish you the results you deserve.
Hopefully you've been receiving my background papers, and you may have actually read 1 or 2 of them. This week you received 2 more addressing the budget you'll be asked to approve today. You may have the perception I oppose what's in that budget. That would be incorrect. It may be an absolutely great budget. My problem, as I believe should be yours, is there's insufficient information to make a determination. We have no idea what 80% of the budget is to be used for. All we know is 80% falls under a single heading, education in general, which tells us virtually nothing. For 16 line items of $11 million, the budget amount for next year is precisely the same as a year ago, yet 6 of those have year-to-date amounts materially different than last year's budget. Thus, it would seem events since then might also affect the coming year. We don't know because no information has been provided. I could not in good conscience approve such a budget without more information. I would hope you feel the same. Thank you.
We have Rodrigo Diaz, Mike Sanderson, Kathleen Cody, then Julie Morris.
President Corcoran, I am a New College alumnus and former Peace Corps volunteer. There are plans in your budget for collegiate sports, Greek life, and other changes to the school. But in all these plans with so much money, where are the ideas for engaging the community? All around us, there are Title I schools, Head Starts, and many other public and nonprofit agencies that serve the poor. New College has much to offer these people. We have faculty with wide-ranging expertise and students who want to make a difference. Serving people in need can help New College by providing opportunities for experiential learning. Mr. President, I call on you to work with the faculty and the student body to make New College famous for public service. What good is a world-class education if it doesn't make the world a better place? Thank you.
My name is Mike Sanderson. I came to New College in 1999. Given the limitations of a 60-second comment, I've submitted and posted my full comment to mikesand.com. I asked to speak today on the New College mascot, and there are several contenders. There's the New College Snowflakes, which I love it, and Snowflakes defeated Napoleon in Russia in 1812. The empty set, a placeholder in an official document just to move it forward, is actually the perfect mascot for this place. And then there's the secret mascot that was not in the agenda or the packet that was done with one survey open only to students that wasn't secured with no consultations for alumni. That's why I've started a petition to the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics to reject any New College application, because college sports should bring inclusiveness, integrity, belonging, leadership, and character. The new board is bringing none of that. Until this new board and this new administration shows that the set of athletics in New College will be represented by the empty set. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Cody, Charter Class alum 1964, and board member of NCF Freedom, Inc. a nonprofit with a mission to protect and promote New College. First, thank you, especially Mr. Corcoran, for bringing extra and much-needed state funding to New College, and welcome to our new trustees. NCF Freedom has three major concerns we would like corrected. Unacceptable meeting procedures, including failure in timely posting of documents, as for this meeting, and errors in meeting minutes.
Excuse
Not
me,
directly-
if you finger snap again, and we're going to adjourn. Please continue.
Not directly tackling major challenges facing New College, as reflected in limited or no discussion before you vote on important issues. Delegating too much authority to the interim president, and thus avoiding decisions clearly in your domain as trustees. Please amend the minutes about the accountability plan, since you did not vote or affirm the interim president to work with the faculty on the curriculum for next year. Oops.
I took a
Can
little
I
of your
go?
time. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
And priority number 2, you did not show the student success and living learning facility on the campus master plan or explain its purpose. We sent you a letter with full details about these concerns, and it is posted on our website, ncffreedom.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Julie Morris, then Janine Ashforth, Robin Williams, then Gary Howe after Janine.
I want to talk to you today about New College Regulation 3-5101, which is the campus master plan document. It's outdated and inconsistent with BOG Regulation 21.108 and Florida Statute 1013.30. The NCF regulation needs to be brought into compliance with both Florida statutes and the BOG regulation that I just mentioned. The statute requires campus master plans to be updated every 5 years. Ours hasn't been updated since 2015. New College's plan anticipated the demolition of ABCDE Palmer campus, but it does not anticipate the demolition of the Pay campus. There are a number of items in the preliminary budget and PICO list that will need to be addressed in the next campus master plan update. I encourage you to bring our Regulation 3-5101 into compliance with Florida statutes and BOG regulations prior to any update to the campus master plan.
Thank you.
All right. I'll be speaking to this censured board this Memorial Day week on my alma mater's mascot and that of my fallen partner in the 82nd Airborne. Our mascot here at New College is that set of square brackets holding everything and nothing, containing all possibility, the empty or null set. Our mascot is enshrined in our school's constitution and cannot legally be changed without consent of the whole community. Just as the tyrant-blocking separation of church and state is enshrined in the federal constitution, for which my fiancé fought and died, and which you also disregard at your own deep shame and peril. On Fort Bragg, the Panther is our mascot and H- our motto. H is the hour the enemy should arrive. H- denotes they arrived early, surrounding the brigade, to which our brave leaders replied, "We're supposed to be surrounded, we're the 82nd Airborne." We are the null set. Panther Brigade was victorious. Stolen valor, such as yours, is reprehensible. Today, you cowards reveal only the colors you will be buried under.
We have Gary Howe, Sherry Gorman, Liz Albaz, and Jens Albaz.
Hi, I'm Gary Howell. I graduated in 1973, and as many graduates, I went on to get a PhD and become a faculty. I was mostly at Florida Tech and NC State. So mostly I'm concerned about the morale of the faculty. So I think they feel powerless and on a very short leash. So one thing you could do, of course, is reconsider the blanket denial of tenure. But I was glad to see that you turned over the design of the core curriculum to the faculty. I think that probably makes them feel a little more empowered. Another thing the faculty should feel empowered on is hiring. Even though it's under state law, it's the president's responsibility who gets hired. If you parachute people into departments, they're not going to be happy. we have 12 openings, so it's something to think about. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Architecture Sarasota is a local nonprofit whose mission is to educate about, advocate for, and celebrate Sarasota's unique architectural legacy. One of the major elements of that legacy are the dormitories at New College, designed by the world-famous architect I.M. Pei in 1964. These dormitories fit both the Florida climate and the ideals of New College. I.M. Pei went on from his New College work to build important projects such as the East Wing and the National Gallery in Washington, JFK Presidential Library, the Glass Pyramid in the courtyard of the Louvre, and the Bank of China skyscraper in Hong Kong, amongst many others. As such, it is the responsibility of New College to steward the Pei dormitories, take care of them, embrace them as a major element in the legacy of both New College and the built environment of Sarasota. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The New College mascot, null set, was adopted in the New College Student Alliance Constitution and in the spirit of shared governance can only be changed via the amendment process of the Student Alliance. Violating the Constitution is not a good precedent. Mr. Corcoran, this could have been an easy win for you in an attempt to correct your blatant disregard and contempt for the current students, faculty, and staff, but instead it seems the mascot survey that was sent out was designed either with gross negligence or intent, leading to invalidate the results, taking this choice away from the students. New College stands for excellence, not mediocrity. Our president should too. This board has run afoul of the AAUP on multiple issues, including shared governance, tenure, and academic freedom, the New College chapter of the UFF condemning the tenure denials, and has been censured by a majority of the faculty for breach of your fiduciary duties of care, loyalty, and obedience, among other issues. What is your response?
New College, wanting to model itself on Hillsdale, should heed Hillsdale's own math lecturer, Greg, who quoted Plato, "Math is more valuable than 1,000 eyes, because through it can truth be apprehended." It's violating that goal, indeed unclassical, to change NCF's mascot, the empty or null set, to some lowly sports replacement. Is the BOT bringing New College down a few notches? NCF's presidential search committee begs the question, how low can you go? Can you trust DeSantis minions include college dropout Ziegler to have the expertise to pick an intellectual leader for a lofty institution? No worries. They only have to repick Corcoran or another DeSantis flunky, because the criteria were written so if they're not a distinguished scholar, they can have executive experience. And if they lack academic experience, they can have administrative success. But do tell how Corcoran or any DeSantis flunky can demonstrate a commitment to fostering free speech and academic.
Sarah Ingalls, Betsy Braden.
I couldn't hear the.
I'm sorry. We've got Sarah Ingalls, Betsy Braden, Michael Penny, Melanie Hubbard, and Elena Penny.
Okay.
Hi, I'm a current student and disabled Air Force veteran. At the previous meeting, a threat assessment was requested to be done. To that degree, Trustee Rufo has been amplifying a Twitter account with over 1.2 million followers, who has been labeling our students as far-left extremists, militants, and members of Antifa, which is considered by some to be a domestic terrorist group. These retweets are tantamount to an endorsement of such views, which puts the security of our campus and the safety of our students, faculty, and staff at risk. It is also in violation of New College of Florida's Regulation Manual under Chapter 2, covering the Board of Trustees, Section 2-1011, regarding ethics and conflicts of interest. Item 2 states, the welfare of NCF shall at all times be paramount and take precedence over any and all personal, parochial, or business conflicts of interest. As a veteran who took an oath to defend our Constitution and our nation, I find the views espoused and imposed upon me to be deeply offensive,
As a concerned parent, I am worried the board is not exercising fiduciary responsibility or due diligence in areas that reflect challenges to the college's viability and brand. Stakeholder groups would like to hear the board respond to the new college faculty censure with specificity. I would like to ensure that the censure document is entered into the record for this meeting. The administration has responded publicly without justification that the censure is false. As a parent, I want to know what is factually incorrect in the censure document. A vague response from administration seems to be very much on brand, but this is wrong. I would ask that the BOT respond in a mature and trustworthy way, acknowledge errors, improve communication, and seek to live up to your fiduciary responsibilities. Stop being dismissive to the stakeholders and explain to us why the censure was false and put it in the record.
Hi, everyone. I want to know how many STEM students are transferring out of here. My current computer science first year, for example, is thinking about leaving due to the driving away of key computer science faculty with the drama this last 5 months. It's important for the next president to understand that faculty retention is a key part of the job. Students and parents look at the faculty of a college degree path when they're choosing a college, how it will enable those students to get a well-paying job or into grad school. How will the new president rebuild the trust and confidence that have been lost in the dramatic and rapid changes from the last few months? Is the search committee committed to find someone strong enough to control the social media drama and hyperbole from the Board of Trustees that is driving away local Florida and Sarasota students? Thank you.
Those imposing a new mascot lack both imagination and curiosity. Like King Lear, they bark, "Nothing will come of nothing." In 1980, the brackets in the student constitution marked uncertainty about any mascot, but also stood for epoche in Husserl's phenomenology, derived from Greek skepticism. Modern epoche is the attempt to bracket or suspend one's preconceptions. By the late 90s, the brackets meant the empty or null set. Please pay attention. The logical precondition of all non-empty sets, which is always implied, always exists. The empty set has a cardinality of 0, the number that came from Hindu thought and Islamic scholarship. We could hardly have had the Renaissance or science or computers without it. Just imagine the fun we could have. The empty set is ubiquitous on the field. They've bracketed their opponent. The nulls cannot be eliminated. They're just ineffable. Our brackety, deceptively empty mascot has a power set, itself involving, embracing itself.
Thank you.
I am a current student at New College, and I am speaking today to say that I am dismayed at 1, the fact that you are attempting to change the New College mascot, which has remained the mascot for 26 years, and 2, the lack of student input and student involvement with the proposed changes to the mascot. In regards to student input, there was a one-time survey with predetermined options, which ultimately was overtaken by bots and had over 2 million responses. As far as I can tell, this is a survey referenced in the meeting materials. There were no attempts for additional surveys or feedback by the administration, and now, according to the agenda, you will vote on the approval of a mascot received from a student. However, you haven't even bothered to seek additional student feedback or communicate to the student body what the proposed mascot is. This is only one example of the severe lack of communication by this board and interim president, which combined with the sudden changes over the last few months does not make me feel as though this is a stable learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have concluded the public comment portion of the meeting, and we will proceed with the remainder of the agenda. 2 just housekeeping items. 1, Ms. Fitzpatrick, Trustee Ruiz is here, so
Yes.
she's on the list. And then the board's going to take just a 5-minute break. We ask that you stay in your seats, and we'll be right back. Do I have sound?
The weather right now. We're hot. It's really nice. Is it a month? Are you ready
Okay,
for
5 minutes is over.
Can't guarantee it.
The meeting's back on.
I know what it's like.
Thank you. At this time, we would like to move into the consent agenda, and I would ask if I have a motion to do so.
So,
I can't hear.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I was
And-
going to request
Second.
that we take out 2 portions of it.
Motion? We have a second?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, if there's a request to remove an item,
Yeah.
we'd do that before the
Fine.
motion and the second.
What item would you like removed, Trustee Keenan?
Can we remove, I believe, the first 2, the minutes from the April 26th meeting, and then the preliminary operating budget, because I think there's still some confusion on that.
Okay, so we'll come back to those 2 items. Anybody else? No? Okay. Then left on the consent agenda is the approval of the Met's Culinary Management Purchase Order and the approval of the New College Development Corporation budget for 2023-2024.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. No one's opposed. The consent agenda, those 2 items have been moved in, and we'll come back to the other 2 items to take up separately. At this point, I'd like to ask the president, invite the president, interim President Corcoran, to say a few words, and we'll come back to those items that
Yeah, will be part of regular business.
be part of regular business. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Since our last meeting, I'll give you some updates. You guys probably all read, we had a very successful legislative session in the first 4 months here, or 90 days. We've received almost $50 million of additional funding. 10 of that funding is recurring, which we would get every single year here forward. So it's a dramatic increase, and I think we have been very favorably received by the legislature and the governor. Obviously, he's been very supportive. I think that we are only months away from going back into another legislative session in January, February, and in the middle of March. It moves up in an election year, so that's an earlier session. And I hope to be as successful in that legislative session. I think we'll begin to have a story to tell to the legislators and the governor on how we have been successful. And so I think that's a positive since the last meeting. In enrollment, at the last meeting, I discussed with you guys that we track our enrollment year over year. And at the last meeting, we were down 24%, but I had told you guys we were on a trajectory that looked very much like we could end up setting record enrollment. Today, we're down 4% as opposed to 24%, and given the current trajectory, it seems almost a certainty that we will have record enrollment. On those criteria of the record enrollment, Trustee Keenan had asked a bunch of detailed questions, and I've put together, I think, most of the questions, most of the data points, Trustee Keenan, and I'll just pass those around so you guys can all have copies. And someone in the audience had asked me for them too, but we'll make extra copies for you all folks too. If you want to pass those. Basically, the numbers, some of the highlights I think that you guys would care about is that the diversity is improving in some situations. Our African American enrollment is up 2% from 5 to 7. It's still not where we need to be, but we're on a good trajectory. Our diversity among gender, where last fall it was 51% female to male. And now we're 67 to 33% female to male. Now we're sitting pretty close to 51-49 to date with the incoming enrollees, which creates a more reflective diversity. So I think those are some good, strong numbers. Most of the other numbers are pretty much comparable, the same to last year in terms of the data. And if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer those. On improving student life, we've had great meetings. Trustee Keenan and her team have been have given us lots of lists. Our faculty have given us a list. We're in the process. Ben, our CIO, is in the back, whether it's improving the library security and fixing the doors, the elevators all being functional and working, the swipes in the dormitories, We're working on a fence that we hope to have implemented as quickly as possible along Tamiami for the east side of the campus. We have purchased an app, which is the most innovative app that every student can have on their cell phone and immediately push a button and seek help. That app will be operational for the fall. And all of the security measures, or some of them have been in the pipeline and have been recommended to the college for years, just never acted upon. So it was nice that we could just pick up those studies, those inputs that have already been in existence for years, and finally be able to execute upon them, which is what we're doing. Hopefully, by the fall, it would be my goal to be able to say that in my opinion, based on these factors, that we have the safest campus in the nation. We also have, obviously with the funding, we have created a presidential scholarship. The data is there. We have over 100 kids so far that have been awarded the presidential scholarship. We've taken our data science kids. One of the presenters made a good point with what we've had, some of the complications that we've had in the data science program. So we've taken our data science students and we are giving them a basically full ride for the incoming data science students, the existing the graduate students, for the completion of their school. And so that is something that we've done. Also last year, the previous president had a presidential scholarship. That was a one-year scholarship. We're giving it to those students for the entire time they're here at school. So a ton of the money is going to hopefully not only enhance the student experience, but to make it even more affordable for our students to get a world-class education. The other thing that we have done is we've worked some of the comments. I just want to update the two components of hiring faculty and working on the new core curriculum. We've worked with the faculty. As we said last meeting, or at a faculty meeting that I've had with them, we want to honor the process. We want to honor the shared governance. We just need to move a little bit expeditedly because of the fall semester coming upon us so quickly. But we've had great meetings with the faculty. They've been very helpful, very cooperative. And on the core curriculum, many of you have seen the memo. We've had great input from the faculty on that concept of merging the liberal arts with the techne, or the virtue and the techne. The faculty have now taken that. We have side-by-sides with the current required courses versus these concept of required courses, which would be a year from this coming fall. It would be for the 24 cycle students, not for the 23. But we would slowly implement them year over year. They've broken into two groups. The faculty have chosen who should be on those groups, and they have the technique group and the virtue group, and they're meeting, and we're starting to go through those courses and hopefully have the initial year's recommendations, which would be voluntary in the fall of 23. As far as hiring the faculty, obviously with a lot of the publicity, we've been working with our division chairs. We're working with all of the faculty. As resumes have come in from all over the country, we've taken those resumes, we've given them to our faculty. Our faculty has decided whether or not they meet the criteria for qualifications, and of those that meet the qualifications, they're now assessing which lines or which openings exist, and whether those folks can fit into those lines. So we're working very closely with the faculty, and we'll be doing that throughout the summer on additional faculty positions. Both of those are very positive, and one of the presenters, I think, was a former student who talked about that, but we are working in that capacity with the faculty. On some of the items that are coming up on the agenda, Madam Chair, is what's in the proposal that's before you is the Palmer buildings. Again, this is something that was, as one of the presenters alluded to, has been in the master plan for, 6, 7, 8 years, and yet was, again, never acted upon. Part of the reason it was never acted upon was because they just never received the means. Not only was it decided to not have the Palmer buildings, it was also decided what would replace them. And those proposals were even given to the legislature long before any of this transition has taken place. So what we're doing is we will begin a process of amending the master plan, bringing it up to up current. But where those Palmer buildings are is, as in the previous master plan, where there would be a new student center, new dormitories, as we move all the students as much as we can and as quickly as possible over to the west side, and have the west side and all of the beauty that exists there on a day-to-day basis for our students, whether it's classrooms or whether it's dormitory. You know, the uniqueness of New College, and some of the things that are very, very special about New College, is the relationship that our faculty have with our students. And so some of the discussion points have, not only do we have a a very low ratio, but they also have a very strong mentor relationship with our students. And so some of the concepts that we're getting input from that we'll start working through the process is when those Palmers are moved, and the types of facilities that would replace them, as were in the previous master plan that has been in existence, is trying to create, and some of you guys who are faculty members could probably address this more in greater detail, but like the Harvard colleges, or like what you have at UVA, where you have situations where you have the building, it has the classrooms, it has the meeting space, it has faculty offices, and it also has, on the second floor or third floor, it also has student housing. And so you have these basically families of, whether it's anthropology, psychology, data science, where you have the students, the faculty, meeting space all together, and they're in some sort of a quad, as you see in UVA and these other schools. But I think that continues to build on the great uniqueness that New College offers, is not only do we have this one-on special relationship between the faculty and the students, and these narratives as opposed to grades, but you also are actually physically there in the same capacity as your professor and your meeting classrooms, and all of the students are together in some sort of quad or place. I think if you look at the historical drawings and renderings and thought process, is most of it would be built along where the Palmers are and along the promenade up until you get to the flood zone. Hopefully, Vice President Kinsley will start reaching out to an architect or architect or two, people who've been involved in the past with New College, and start saying, okay, what does this look like as we try to update our master plan to be more current, and then very quickly expedite on those plans so that we can drastically improve student life on campus. And then the other thing that's on the agenda, which you've heard a lot of testimony about, I think it's a very special thing on the agenda. I'm very excited about it, and I don't want to speak further on it, but we will have hopefully the unveiling of a mascot for you guys to approve. And I think that I would definitely stick around for it, because the entire origination and what it is and how it came about and who brought it about is more than special, and it's very unique to New College. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Room President Corcoran.
Can I add one thing? I just want you guys to get sort of a vision for, when we say that we want to have the prettiest, best campus in the entire state. One thing that we've been working on is I do have a rendering that, don't put it up yet, Chrissy, let me explain it first. But we were going through every part of the campus. We've been walking through room by room, building by building, getting the input from whoever is occupying that building, what's broken, what needs to be repaired, toured the campus with Ben, what do we need to do to protect our data from being the most secure data in the country, but at the same time, if we have a hurricane or inclement storm, how many backups, how many servers, on every aspect of the campus. We will are beginning now making those improvements that are very, very long overdue. And one of those is we do have a wonderful, if you've been on the campus or to the campus, we have a wonderful swimming pool. We have a very nice gymnasium, but it just needs a redo. And so hopefully, I do want to show you, we have the renderings. It's not that expensive, but now when the students come back, they're going to be able to go to freshly painted, freshly designed swimming center. This would be the entrance. As you can see, we have the Oxford blue, our color, displayed. We have the four winds. You go in the gate. The whole roof is being repainted. The fascia is being repainted. And the pool looks onto the back. Go back to that one. It looks onto the back of one of our storage facilities or warehouses. And it's completely, if you see it, it looks like the back of a bad warehouse. And so the plan is to paint the entire stucco and clean up the entire warehouse, paint it with the blue and the beige. We have the logo, the new college thing on the back. We save room over to the left for the logo, if approved. And then we're going to put up a Jumbotron screen where the students can watch movies. They can have, a student night, watch sporting events, whatever it might be. And then you can see we're going to invest in new patio furniture and have, just the best patio furniture. It literally will be just hopefully a wonderful, beautiful, you can see the new shrubbery in the back that we'll begin planting. All of this so that students have a great place to congregate, spend time, and hopefully it's one of the best facilities in the university system. But this is just an example, so I give you this one because it was something quick that we could get done before the meeting. But hopefully, with the renewal of the revised master plan, with all of the new types of things we're doing, we're in negotiations with restaurants. It's hopefully when the students return in the fall, it will be a dramatically new place and one where campus life is just drastically improved for all the students. But I just wanted you to see current renderings.
Thank you. Those look great.
Madam Chair,
Sure.
I had a question about the Palmer dorms.
Can I I forgot a very important point.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I hope this answers your question. In the Palmer, and there's not a date. It's not like we were saying, okay, we just want the approval from the trustees. Hopefully it's quickly so we can get students over. But in that, there's a beautiful sculpture that's in the middle if you guys haven't seen it. But this sculpture was donated or done by Jack Cartledge, and a former professor, Mac Miller, brought it to our attention. Our hope is that when we do update the master plan, it would again feature prominently in the new dormitories, a quad, or however it works, that we would have that prominently displayed. It would obviously be protected. The second thing is we would ask, and we're working with the library, we've begun doing it ourselves internally, in anticipation of the Palmers not being there, is anybody who has a story, a picture, anything of historical and wonderful value about the Palmer buildings. We're trying to collect it. We'll probably put it all together in some sort of very memorialized fashion. We don't, whatever that might be, whether it's a book or something otherwise. But we would ask folks to submit those to us, to the administration, as you have those or have them available. But in the interim, we're doing a thorough search with our library folks to try to preserve as much of the history as possible, but recognizing that the move forward is going to be so much more beneficial for the faculty, the students, and everything, and the staff that are housed there.
That was my question. What happens to Jack Cartledge's sculpture?
And I don't want to take credit like I came up with that. I would like to thank Trustee Ruiz did mention it, and
because Mac Miller mentioned it.
Yes, but thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, Trustee Spalding.
I just wanted to thank you for that report, President Corcoran. I just wanted to make a general observation. Given where we've been and what's going on here, the addition immediately of $50 million and $10 million recurring, which I understand is probably not a limited figure, is monumental. The workings of a college to make it operate, to keep it built, to keep it not building up deferred maintenance at the level we had it. Those workings of a college are absolutely necessary for reviving anything here, and I commend you for that very strongly. That is what makes this work. And as correct me if I'm wrong, but the committee, the Strategic Planning Committee, which will be working on the master plan, I'm the chairman of that, so I look forward to drawing all this out. It is quite exciting, and this is what makes it possible. This is what will be great for this college, so thank you again.
And one more addition,
Sure.
if it's right, Madam Chair. We also just concluded what started before us. We had Professor Brain and Marcia Crowley, who work with us at the school, began the New College Challenge. We had 6 different universities, 3 in-state, 3 out-of-state, re-envision what the campus could be. Those proposals all came in a week ago or 2 weeks ago. They're still on display at Architecture Sarasota. And so what we're also doing is borrowing from some of the, all of these different architectural drawings, but we'll borrow from those and incorporate a lot of what they have done and said. into our hopefully our renewal of our master plan through the strategic committee. But just some of the things you guys should know that are on there is, the Caples campus has been completely revisioned, where we have just basically a roof over, and our boats are stored out in public. There's an envisioning of a brand new boathouse. That boathouse would have, classroom space, meeting space, tons of storage space, and potentially even, 20, 30, 40 dormitory rooms in the boathouse. In addition to that, the Caples building, which Vice President Kinsley will talk about, we're going to finish that whole remodeling. So that whole and then there's a beautification of the beach. We've already had DEP and some of those folks come out and say, okay, we want to re-envision and beautify the beach. So, hopefully we'll have renderings for you at the next meeting, or, as we move through the strategic committee, potential renderings of what the boathouse looks like, what the beach looks like, what the Caples mansion, and then you could see all of the potential in that capacity. But they also hopefully will have what potential the quads could look like, what the dorms could look like, what the student center could look like, what improvements to the east side would look like. Hopefully, we're still in negotiations. Our general counsel has been very helpful with the airport on securing this property in perpetuity for the college, not just have some sort of lease that's going to expire and we lose everything. All of that, and then also, we've talked to, and if you look at those architectural renderings that the colleges came back with, they re-envision what the property looks like south of the psychology building over towards USF. Just amazing renderings. So hopefully we can start looking at that and having that incorporated into the reforms of the master plan. But it would just absolutely, as you see, that was a microcosm, a tiny snippet, the pool of the beauty that I think is coming before us with the financial support that we'll be getting. Thank you.
This is all good news. Thank you.
I have one quick question as well. Thank you for your report. I'm very excited about the pool. So one of the questions that I had and why I was asking for some of these numbers is I'm concerned about Title IX in our athletics. Because right now it looks like we have 57 male athletes and only 5 female. And so I was wondering if there's some way, maybe like with legal counsel and admissions, that we get some sort of details about what the Title IX regulations and laws are around athletics, so we know if we're going to be okay, just because that's a pretty big discrepancy. And from my, yes?
One, obviously, I would assure all the trustees that we'll be 100% compliant with every rule, regulation, and statute. That's just a non-starter. But second, part of the reason those numbers are like that is the first person we hired was the baseball coach.
Mm-hmm.
So now, since then, every week or so that has gone on and the interview process has been conducted, now we have a female soccer coach, now we have et cetera. And they always want to recruit their own team. Mm-hmm. They want to recruit their players, and so we've held back on some of the recruitment until those coaches were hired, and now they're out actively recruiting. And so I think we have somewhere in the ballpark of 100+ applications in the pipeline, awaiting transcripts, awaiting all of for them to be formally admitted. But you'll at the next meeting I'll give you that update, or as soon as I have it, Trustee Keenan. But the numbers will absolutely. That's why we're starting. Every sport is equal. It's women's soccer, men's soccer, women's basketball, men's basketball, in the compliance with Title IX.
Thank you. And I was also going to ask, what is the explanation, at least you think, for the ratio of gender being different this year? Last year was 67 to 33. This year, 51 to 49, which is about even. And so if our admissions requirements haven't changed and the way we're evaluating, what might be an explanation for that?
The two quickest ones would be, the easiest one is sports. We're currently attracting, and the numbers will change. I don't think, right now we're at, I think even since I walked over here, there's a admission change, but let's say 230, somewhere in that ballpark. If we get to like a 330, you're going to see that number expand. I think if you look at the nationwide average, it's probably closer to 60-40. More women go to college than men. And so we'll probably be, I think this is particularly low right now because of the dynamic I just told you about with where we were on recruiting in sports. I think it'll get closer to 60-40 and be more mainstream to the national numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question, if I can follow up on that. I'm curious about who has been hired to coach the different teams. In different reports, I've actually seen a 5th women's team suggested relative to 4 men, but beach volleyball isn't on this list that you give us. Can you tell us who has been hired to staff these different coaching positions? And also, I've noticed on some of the plans that there's a move to have graduate assistants affiliated with all of the different teams. And I'm wondering what sorts of academic programs these graduate assistants might be affiliated with, or if perhaps you're planning on having them at other colleges and not at New College?
All of the recent hires, in fact, I could, Erica, normally we're pretty good about sending out the updates, but we can send out an update of all of the bios of the folks who have been hired and get that out to you.
I've been trying to get that information.
Just call me anytime, Amy.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the regular business of the board. 2 items were removed from.
Professor Kessler has a question.
Sorry, Professor Kessler, you have a question?
Yes, no, I have a question or two. Thank you, Mr. President, for that excellent report. I had a question, first of all, on admissions. What is the story concerning the academic strength of the new admittees? Where are we in terms of average SATs, GPAs? What kind of data do you have on the academic qualifications of this year's incoming class versus last year's or any other years for that matter?
We'll send you the sheet that I passed out, Professor Kessler, but I can give you the average ACT last year was 26. So far, our average ACT is 25. The average GPA last year was 3.95. The average GPA so far this year is 3.8. And the average LSAT last year was 1243, and so far it's 1175. And if you look at if we did a 7-year trend of the college, there has been a slight gradual decline in those numbers going back 7 or 8 years. But we're tracking it on a daily basis.
Okay, that's interesting. I think those figures are very important, and they should be in the board materials for our meeting. We should, I look forward to receiving your report, but it's too late to evaluate it and to discuss it as a board. And I think we need to get a little bit ahead of these trends and have some data in the materials so that we are better prepared to evaluate it and the question, and to evaluate your comments on it as well. Second question, so there are, I'm told, 12 openings. There are 12 faculty positions that the college has advertised and is receiving applications for. Is that correct?
I think that's the number, Professor Kessler. It's 12.
Yeah. I would also like the board to see what fields those positions are in, and what how the justification for those 12 positions was reached. I assume the faculty and the administration somehow together have a justification for them, but I think the board would like to be privy to that as well. Since we're considering new directions in curriculum and so forth, I think it's important that that the hiring strategy of the college be in sync with the board and its priorities. So could we get that information? What fields these positions are in and what justification has been provided for them so far?
Absolutely.
And finally, the core curriculum that you speak of. This hasn't formally come before the board, I don't believe. We have seen a preliminary draft of the Virtue Techne dimensions or proposed dimensions of the curriculum. But when does the board have an opportunity to exert its function here on the core curriculum? Is it only, is this going to be developed by the president and the faculty and then presented to the board? Or does the board have a more preliminary role in deciding what shape this curriculum should take, before we sign off on a finished curriculum presented to us by the faculty and the administration?
Obviously, the trustees would have to approve any of those changes. Right now, as I said in my presentation, the faculty is broken in and taken volunteers to work through this part of the summer on the techne and the virtue components. Yesterday, I had a conversation with Dr. Spalding about Dr. Spalding if he had time as a trustee to also, we have the faculty lead, David Harvey, who's overseeing the two groups, and I've asked Trustee Spalding if he had the time to also oversee the two groups. But it's not limited to one person. If someone like yourself would like to also be abreast of that, or other members of the trustees, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to have a discussion among the trustees about the general framework that it's taking. I mean, the theme of virtue and techne is an interesting one, but it obviously needs to be fleshed out and thought through a bit, and some attention paid to areas that, at least in the preliminary documents, have not been fleshed out or thought through, I would say, on the civic side of matters, and what it takes. What is it that New College wants to impart to its students in the form of civic learning and civic consciousness? And I think that's a very important question, particularly in today's academic situation. So the sooner the board could get involved in providing an opportunity for deliberation about this curriculum, I think the better.
Agreed. And hopefully as the faculty continue to work through it, we'll have information and concepts that we can then work through with the trustees through the committee level and then to the full board of trustees.
I just add, Trustee Kessel is many of the same concerns I've raised. I believe Trustee Barrowline has raised similar concerns, hence my willingness to kind of take a look at this from the trustees' point of view, so that we're not caught further down the road, precisely to raise some of the questions Trustee Kessler has brought up.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Does anybody else on the Zoom have any questions or comments? Any other trustees? No? Okay. Thank you, Trustee Kessler.
Along the same lines, I would like to be aware of the impact on the students who are in progress to graduation, and the impact on whether it will slow them down or cause them to take on extra work, and also how we're going to articulate, if that's the correct word, rising high schoolers who need to have certain requirements and transfers who have already met their general education requirements, and whether they will have to extend their academic career in order to meet these requirements. So there's a fit in transition that I'd like to be more aware of, and I hope that we have more than one meeting of academic affairs, which is a public meeting in which all trustees are welcome to attend as well, so that we can hear the benefit. We've never had so many academic experts on this board, and I would like to hear what they think before I act on it.
All of that those are exactly the tasks of the committees that are meeting throughout the summer to start figuring those components out. But to your first point, there's zero impact on existing students, and there's zero impact on arriving students. What this would take effect is if it's adopted and it's a requirement, it would take effect for the class of 24. It would not affect existing students, and the class that would come in, it would be a voluntary to the extent that they want to participate in any of these courses.
Well, New College has requirements for independent study projects, for thesis, for internships, and so that's a heavy load. And so balancing those elements of what makes for what I think the academic excellence of New College with new requirements, we have to be careful not to make it impossible for students to meet that workload, because it's a challenge getting through the academic program as it is. And so I'm concerned about the balancing act as well for the new crew. And transfers will be a reality of life and an important part of our enrollment and success. So I want to make sure we don't disadvantage them in the future.
One last question. We're already kind of past our time for the meeting.
If I can just say, I'm very pleased to hear Trustee Kessler's questions and Trustee Ruiz's, and I know that faculty are very concerned about ensuring that students, both those who are here and those who are coming in, can not only complete any general education requirements, but complete the areas of concentration that brought them here. And so a lot of the dance that's going to have to happen with these different committees is trying to ensure that requirements are not so onerous so that students can't complete the sort of exploratory projects that have been a real hallmark of New College's education. So we need to make sure that requirements and breadth mesh with the requirements for specific AOCs. Okay, we don't want to ensure that, we don't want to force our pre-med students to take a 5th year, right? We want to make sure that they can complete their requirements both for the gen ed and their areas of concentration in a timely fashion.
All of that's being discussed, and all of it will be addressed, and it will not be an issue.
Madam Chair, I know we're over time. If I could just take 30 seconds here.
Sure.
I just wanted to share that for me, at least, my expectation is when I was a student here, and it's a very anecdotal kind of experience, I would go negotiate my contract on a semester basis, and my contract advisor would never let me take all the classes that I wanted to take. They always forced me to take. I was a history major, and so I wanted to take all history classes, and they said, no, you have to take art history, no, you have to take economics, and it enriched me and gave me a much better education. So I hope that this process, and I see this process, is really just more formalizing and memorializing that same process that already existed here for a long time. It was never a free-for-all in what classes you take. There's always a core set of things that you would need to take anyway, and my expectation is this is just a memorialization of what already was happening here in certain ways. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue with the regular business of the board. We had 2 action items that were taken off of the consent agenda to be discussed as part of the regular business. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the April 26, 2023 Board of Trustee meeting.
So my concern here is 2 things. One, lately, our minutes of our meetings have been very sparse. In this section, for the President's report, it simply says Interim President Richard Corcoran provided his remarks and no more details. So I'm going to ask that these minutes be revisited. We have a recording of the board meetings to have a little bit more detail about what specifically those remarks are. I know they don't have to be incredibly detailed. It's not a transcript, but at least bullet points about what was remarked on at these meetings, some of the questions we had. And the second part that was brought up earlier in the public comments, and I know we've all received a couple emails about this section, is on, I believe it's the second page, the part that says, following the vote, the chair and the Board of Trustees authorize the president to evaluate and augment curriculum at New College and work with the faculty to discuss and teach this curriculum beginning implementation in 23-24, report back to us on recommendations you have. And so I'm concerned about this for 2 parts. In the minutes, it looks like this section was added in after the fact. It's a different formatting from the rest of the document, which I just don't understand. And the second is that there was no vote on this particular section. We did not, as a board, recommend this of you. This was a comment made by Chair Jenks. And so it's fine to be in there, but it needs to be edited to be accurate, to be just a comment by the chair. And then on that point, I would say that if that comment's being included, I'd like my comments to be included, as well as many of the other trustees' comments to be included. So I'd like to motion that these minutes are revisited by, I believe you're the secretary, but you delegate that responsibility, and edited with those considerations, and then we can approve it in our next meeting, if that's all right. So I motion to do that.
So typically, Madam Chair and Trustee Keenan, what would happen is you raise corrections. If there is not an objection to the corrections that you raised, then really no motion under Robert's rules is required. If there is a dispute, and I use that term loosely, with regard to the proposed correction, then it's treated as an amendment to a main motion, which means that it would be treated as an amendment to the minutes as drafted. And so if you all would like to consider the corrections that have been enunciated here by Trustee Keenan, you're free to do that, and then the secretary can make those amendments and make those corrections. The motion to revisit is tantamount to you voting no on approval of the minutes as a whole.
So motion with those corrections? Is that?
Yes. Well, she wants to add as a correction to the minutes additional information about the remarks of the president and clarify that the direction reflected here on the curriculum was enunciated by the chair.
Exactly, yeah.
And so if no one has an objection to that, those corrections can be made.
Mr. Galvano, would it be appropriate to ask Trustee Keenan to provide some specific comments or to work with you and bring them back at the next meeting, or is that adding too much process to it?
I'd remind everybody that these meetings are public and recorded, and the role of minutes is actually limited in scope by Robert's rules. It's really what are the official actions that took place. In fact, the rules actually state that it's not about what someone actually says. And so what I would recommend procedurally is to have the secretary, and we could bring them, distribute them back, but just if you're in agreement, all of you accept what corrections were proposed, and then go ahead and approve the minutes and move on.
I would just say that that I don't fully grasp the undercurrent. I mean, if you're asking, are we going to do something wrong or unlawful, or I don't, or that somehow Deborah Jenks has given me the power to do something without you guys' approval, none of that's going to occur.
Well, so according to the minutes, it appears as if there was a vote that did not happen. And so what I'm asking is that we approve with the correction that the language is changed, because right now it says that we advise you to do something, which we did not do. So I'd like that language to be changed, just for the record and for clarification on all parts.
I have no objection to that. If you just want to change it to the chair said.
Yeah.
Which,
that's exactly.
although, sorry for clarification, the chair authorized.
Yeah.
It wasn't merely a comment.
Right.
And as I recall, we had a discussion about whether we need to take a vote, and we decided we didn't need to, and that you were authorized to do that.
So we just change it to authorized.
Is that correct, Counsel?
I don't believe, I think it would have to be a vote of the board to authorize the president to reevaluate the core curriculum. I think that requires a vote, and that's what's said here. And so it's perfectly understandable if you, as the chair, are having discussions and want to know more about core curriculum and are asking the president to do that. But authorizing the president to do something is separate and will require a vote.
I think it just says the chair authorized.
One thing, Mr. Galvano, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. The minutes need to reflect what actually happened at the meeting, even if it was incorrect. And so we can't, if there's a action we need to take on something, we can take further action on it, but you can't reflect in minutes that something happened that didn't, right? So
that's correct.
If the chair did authorize something, it may be an issue for us to discuss whether that's appropriate or not, but the minutes should reflect what happened at the meeting.
I think Trustee Keenan's suggestion addresses it appropriately. She just asked that it say, and the chair said,
Exactly.
authorized, blah, 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 right?
There is a distinction between the Board of Trustees authorization and chair's authorization. And if the chair is authorized, that's as to Trustee Cristaldi's point. That's what we heard here today.
Well, the only issue with that is, can any one trustee authorize the president to do something?
That's a good question.
So that was the language that was used, and to Trustee Cristaldi's point, and I don't know, it's up to the board. You could say said, you could say however you want. And I think you're frankly, with all due respect, overthinking it maybe a little bit.
I agree. I think if it is you're fine with the chair authorizes instead of.
The chair said, because the issue I
honestly,
have is that.
I just think you guys should move on. It doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to happen that's going to be taken out of place or inappropriate. And so if that's what Trustee Keenan wants, I have no objection to it.
Well, I think this is actually a good opportunity to make some clarifications. From my understanding.
We have a motion, you have a motion pending to make some changes to the minutes. So let's stick to what it is that you want changed in the minutes that you think needs to be corrected, because we want to do this correctly.
Correct.
And then
Yes, so.
in a future meeting, can we have a discussion about the distinction between whether or not a single trustee can authorize the president to do something, or it have to be the entire board?
Yes, we can have that discussion.
We can have that discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Trustee Keenan, I'm sorry, can you just point out specifically where the issue is?
It's just after the president's report, under the accountability plan, it's paragraph 2 in that section on page 2.
The paragraph that starts following the vote?
Following the vote.
Okay. And the change that's been motioned is to remove the words "and the Board of Trustees" after the word "the chair"?
So that's why we're having this confusion, is because we don't know whether or not the board chair individually can authorize the president to do something. And
So my question is, in order for us to vote on what you would like, you should give us specific language. So tell us what that paragraph should say. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in order for us to take it to a vote and move to it.
So from that same understanding, if it wasn't an official vote, and this was just a comment, and the minutes should reflect what actually happened in terms of voting, maybe this section should be removed. Because we're talking about core curriculum anyways, but this makes it appear as a vote happened and.
Change what happened.
I would be certainly in sympathy to Trustee Keenan's major point here, which is we should have a discussion and perhaps a vote on the core curriculum as soon as possible as a board. And that we haven't had that is anomalous, and it's awkward from a procedural and a substantive point of view, I would say. But and so if she needs a second to her amendment on the rules, I would certainly second it.
Okay,
Second
so
motion.
she doesn't need a second. Let me make this suggestion as counsel, and it goes back to my point under the rules. It's to reflect official actions. I don't think you're impacting anything one way or another legally if you just remove the language and make the other correction and then vote on the minutes as proposed to be corrected by Trustee Keenan.
So just take the paragraph out.
And Trustee Keenan, would you be okay with implementing the more detailed accounting of remarks in the next minutes? Or do you want to go backwards and correct these?
For this specific section?
Yeah.
No, what she's referring to is you made a reference to the president's report.
I did, but we can take that off the table right now.
Okay, so And then committee reports do have to have a high level of details. So what's before you all right now are the corrections proposed to removing this paragraph. That's what it's
Yes.
limited to at this point. And if there's, and I go through the chair, but if there's not an objection to that, then that change can be made. We don't have to go through a vote, and then you can ask if there's other corrections.
Okay, are there any other,
I believe Trustee Reed.
no, excuse me. Trustee Reed?
I had one other question about the language of the motion that did have a vote at the meeting. And it says repeatedly that a motion was made to approve early tenure for each of the candidates. In my recollection, the motion was actually to approve tenure. And so I would ask that that language be adjusted to say that a motion was made to approve tenure for each of the candidates. So to strike the word early from each of those, if I am correct that was the motion.
I think that's a specific that goes to the once awarded, you are awarded tenure. It doesn't matter if it's early or it's unscheduled. You are granted tenure, but there's two different tracks. There's early tenure, and then there's you come up tenure.
Well, it was my motion to approve for tenure. That was the motion that I did in the last meeting. So.
And there was also extensive discussion about the legitimacy of that vote being an actual vote to deny early tenure as the equivalent of that vote. So at the very least, it should reflect that, because that was, at least on my part, my intent, and I think the intent of a lot of the other board members.
Yes. So early was the term used.
I'm not sure that early was in the motion offered by Trustee Keenan.
It was not.
And I don't believe that there was anything that modified that motion when it was offered.
Well, it notes Trustee Kessler made the motion.
No, it was Keenan.
So that's not
So
correct
that's
either.
another thing too.
Oh, no.
I had disappeared by that time.
No, that he had
I
lagged.
think Trustee Ruiz, it says that
I
Trustee
plead
Kessler
innocent.
and I left. Those aren't the motions and the seconds.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
notation that we
Right.
had to exit.
It doesn't say who made the motion. Thank you,
Yeah, it
Ron.
also does not say.
Yes.
I mean, I would have no objection, having the motion exactly as it was made, but keeping the statement that candidate was denied early tenure to make the distinction, so it's clear what the board actually did, since accuracy is important here.
Fine with that.
Okay, so let me make clear. We're removing the paragraph that starts with following the vote, and we are adding a section clarifying that there was a discussion about early tenure, and then for the portions that clarified the specific motion, we are going to remove early, because that's what was said.
So,
What was the second part, Grace?
The second part is to, as add a comment that there was a discussion about early tenure.
So if there's no objection to those, we can modify the minutes in that regard, and then you can entertain a motion to approve them.
So, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? I have actually no objection to dropping the paragraph. I actually think it's poorly written. But for the sake of clarity and accuracy, it is correct that the chair authorized, whatever term you want to use, the president to look into the curriculum question. And it says to come back to the board for approval.
Right.
So I would like to see the minutes reflect that accurately, so that when it does come to us, it's not coming to us out of nowhere. So that was an action of this body done by the chair.
Can we remove the paragraph she wants and put that in its place?
Well, the only thing
If just a brief, clear statement to that effect can be made, absolutely.
But it's still contested about whether or not that can happen.
The chair can authorize.
I can authorize him to go do what we asked him to do. That's what we did.
Nothing's been approved.
Nothing's been approved.
It's
It
to
was-
come back to the board. It
Yes,
wasn't an
it's come
actual
back to the
authorization
board.
of the thing.
Right.
Removing that the Board of Trustees authorize that, because this includes the chair and the entire board.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
But I would actually shorten it to say authorize the president to evaluate curriculum at New College and work with the faculty to bring something back to the board. I mean, it is kind of, it's not
Maybe we could avoid the concern here by just saying the chair is directing the president to evaluate this and bring it to the board. The chair has the right to put things on the agenda, and she is asking the president to prepare for that. And so I would feel more comfortable with the chair directed the president to
That's
bring
fine.
something to the board.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Go with that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And we fix the tenure.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, we have that, so.
Because that was your intent, right, Chair Jennings?
Correct. Yeah, that was the intent. Yes.
Okay, all in with those corrections.
Okay, so
all
with those corrections, all in favor of approving the minutes to be as corrected?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
We had-
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
and Any opposed? No? Okay. The next item that was pulled off of the consent agenda is the approval of the 2023-2024 preliminary operating budget, which is just that. It's a preliminary budget. That's the best that could be prepared at this time.
So I wanted to,
I was just going to say, as chair of the committee, I can present the
Thank you.
item if you'd like me to.
Okay, sure.
So the committee met on.
Can you speak louder? I'm not sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me pull this microphone up. Sorry about that. The committee met, I believe, on May 24th with a majority present, and I believe Trustee Reed, who is not a committee member, but a trustee, was also present at the meeting. This item came up for consideration, which is recommending to the full board the 23-24 preliminary operating and capital budgets. And the recommendation of the committee, as unanimously approved at the committee meeting, was to both recommend approval of the college's 23-24 preliminary operating and capital budgets as proposed, and to recommend authorization of the president to make necessary adjustments to these budgets during the operating year. Madam Chair, I did talk with Mr. Kinsley, who prepares the budget and is primarily responsible to it before the committee meeting and after the committee meeting, and I did consult with Mr. Galvano as well. This preliminary operating budget is, as I understand it, necessary to release funds from the state and has to be submitted to the state by June 20th. It is contemplated in the presentation materials that the management will bring back a final budget no later than September of 23. So, and this is, in my experience over the past few years here, typical process for New College, and I believe other universities.
Okay. So is there discussion on?
And I would just say, and Mr. Galvano, correct me if I'm wrong, because it comes with a committee recommendation, you would only need a second and then a vote on it.
Okay.
You have a question?
So
Okay, we have a
I have
question.
questions
Yes.
about this. And I have been in contact with Chris Kinsley, who has, I believe, shared some more information with other members of the board. But I was hoping that we could actually have a couple of errors corrected on this before we approve it. Specifically, and these are things, I know Chris did respond to a number of my questions, but I think it's important that we actually have the correct numbers in front of us, so that if you look at the approved budget for 22-23, there's a couple of mistakes in the source of funds section there. Specifically, there's a $5 million addition to the auxiliary services, student activities, and local fees. And I don't know if Chris would like to speak to this. There's also just some other things that he might want to address.
The chair.
Well, first of all, you have to come back through me
Okay.
to ask about that. So
She had asked if Chris could clarify.
So is it, yeah.
you want him to do it?
I think if you get him up here and have that clarification, and then she'll.
Yeah, let's, Mr. Kinsley, are you here? Thank you. Can you speak to the
Yes, I'll be
members that-
very brief.
Make
Thank
sure
you.
you speak into the mic so that,
Okay, I'm
you're tall.
attempting to do that, so without causing too much feedback. So,
thank you.
thank you, Dr. Reed. Did catch some technical errors in the budget, which I apologize for. That's why the language is in this to, for the president to authorize any corrections. When we submit this to the Board of Governors, they too may find, we made a technical error. So embedded in the approved budget for last year, if you look at line Roman numeral 2, it's the auxiliary services, student activities, and local fees. Originally in the budget considered by the Finance and Administration Committee we erroneously listed an approved budget of some $12 million. The actual number that had previously been approved was $7,654,069. That carried forward to the proposed budget because what staff did was, for everything except for state appropriations, we just carried forward the most recent approved budget because we have not yet crossed the fiscal year barrier of June 30th, so that's been our practice. I will say on this particular, the other two errors that will be corrected are Roman numeral 4 under source of funds. We had erroneously listed $3,238,589. The correct approved number is actually $2,498,062. The one foot total that is also, when we looked at the formulas, under total sources for the current year, we had shown a budget total sources of $75,811,168. It actually should be $70,673,276. And one thing, I don't know how I missed this or anybody missed this, but the sources in the current year is 75 million and change, and the uses is 70 million. So the revenues and the uses did not agree. So thank you, Dr. Reed. As you said, it's pretty good work for a French professor.
I like numbers.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you for pointing these errors out. I don't like to make any errors, but we're always going to acknowledge if there's if we've made, these were typos, these were not intended to somehow mislead or the board at all.
Did he answer your question?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've had the presentation, the issue on the corrections has been raised. So with you getting a second to approve this preliminary budget with those corrections.
So,
And can I just ask that the adjusted figures be recirculated to the board?
Yeah.
they will be.
Thank you.
They'll be corrected, and it'll be part of the official record will be what was corrected. Thank you.
So I move approval of the preliminary operating and capital budget proposal as corrected.
Second. No, you just second.
You just,
Oh, I'm
it's already
seconding.
motion.
Missed that, sorry.
Belt and suspenders, we're good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I have a
Anyone-
question, please.
Yes.
So there remain, even with the correction, on Roman numeral 2 under source of funds, there's a discrepancy between the approved budget of $7,654,000 now and the actuals of $6,455,000. So there's still over $1 million in discrepancy there. Is there an explanation for such a large discrepancy?
Mr. Kinsley's coming back to the podium.
Yes, sir.
If you can see him.
Yes, sir.
There he
Those
is.
are the actuals, the current as of 5/16. So the approved is column 1. Column 2 is the actual at the moment, not audited, but point in time, the actuals. So actuals are always going to be different than the approved. So when we close the year, we will still have discrepancies up or down because the actual revenues and actual expenditures are always going to be at some variance with what was proposed and planned.
Well, no, I understand that. The question is, why is the discrepancy seemingly rather large compared to other discrepancies between the approved budget column and the actual column, just looking down the list there?
You're asking why the variance is so high?
Yeah. Has something, are there late figures to come in from student activity funds, auxiliary services, and local fees that would remove that discrepancy or reduce that discrepancy?
Before I gave anything other than a broad brush comment, I'd like to work with the fiscal staff to study it since we did make an error there. I would say if I had to speculate, I don't really want to speculate. So let me just leave it at that. I will get back to you, sir, and to the board with an explanation.
Okay, you have a motion and a second.
So we have a motion and a second, and so let's call the vote. So all those in favor of approving the budget to be corrected as noted, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Thank you. So the preliminary budget to be corrected, as corrected, has been approved. All right. That resolves our regular business of the items pulled from the consent agenda. We're now back to Mr. Kinsley. I asked that he come back up. He's the Vice President of Finance and Administration, and he's going to provide an overview. We're going to, let's do him next. Okay. Yeah, let's do you, and then we'll come back to the other two. Since we're on the financial stuff.
I serve at the pleasure of, so let's see if I can get in the right posture here. So the next thing up is the capital improvement plan. This, so it's really good news in my estimation in terms of the college has not received substantial funding from the state of Florida in some years. And this year we received both our #1 and our #2 project, Hamilton Classroom Renovation, as well as the Pritzker Marine Science Building. So now with that, what the state requires via the Board of Governors is that this board, along with every other university board, submit a 5-year capital improvement plan. In order to meet the deadline, we're putting this forward to the board today. So I'm going to walk through that, noting first that the Pritzker building and the Hamilton Classroom building, which had been our longtime #1 and #2 project, have now been removed because we received that funding from the state. So now we'll consider what's left on the list. So what's now on the list proposed for your approval is first, priority 1, the multi-purpose building supporting enrollment growth. It's not the most catchy of names, and this list can certainly be modified at a future meeting. But this is the building that I think the president alluded to earlier. When we had the growth enrollment plan from several years ago, we were going to have one large building that would allow the college to replace all of the Palmer academic buildings. That's why they have a survey recommendation for demolition. The college asked for several years for this funding, never received it, changed priorities, and now this is back at the top of the list. We're asking for $10 million in planning funds. Our estimate of total all-in project costs are estimated at $67.9 million. The next priority, and if I could, I'll go through the list and then be glad to take any questions. Priority 2, the Student Success Living Learning Facility, E&G component only. This would be a mixed-use building. It would contain educational and general space and also housing. It would be a true living, learning community. Several schools in our own state have this model. It's very successful. Although it seems innovative, this is actually in some ways a return to higher education's roots, where students would live in the place where they actually teach and learn. In some cases, the faculty would be embedded in housing as well. I don't think we contemplate that now, but this is in some ways a return to an old model. The state component of this we estimate at about $25 million, and the college is asking for $10 million in planning and some early design work, site preparation work. Next up is land acquisition. While this could encompass any parcel, the focus is really on acquiring the land upon which we sit today. This property that we have a leasehold interest from the airport, but in some 30 years, this may be a runway unless we act upon this. And the president mentioned this. I know the board is well familiar with this issue. This has been a long-standing, in my estimation, problem. You cannot build with state money. You cannot borrow the funds to build on land that you don't have a long-term interest. It just becomes practically impossible, and we're quickly approaching the point where legally it will become very challenging to take state money and put it on a piece of property that we don't have a long lease on. So that's what that's intended to address. The last two projects is Old Caples House and the associated carriage house. As some of the longtime board members know, you authorized the college to move forward with renovations to the interior. Those will be completed, we estimate, sometime in August, and that will allow that building to be occupied again. What we're looking now is to focus on the exterior, especially the roofing and the building envelope. Just today, at least by 5 o'clock, which is the deadline, we are applying for a Department of State historic grant. If we receive that, and I have reason to believe, hopeful that we will, that would provide $500,000 of matching funds that we would use then to repair the roof. So we are trying to augment, not just ask the Board of Governors and the state via the PICO process to provide money. We're leaving no stone unturned to try to bring this building back to the condition it deserves as really the founding building of not just our campus, but FSU, Ringling, USF. That's what really prompted development of this entire area of Sarasota. And lastly, the shared use facility. We have a shared chiller plant with FSU. The chiller plant is at capacity, so when we go to add these new buildings, this is the most efficient way to heat and cool these buildings is through this chilled water plant, and we're at capacity. So we're asking the state for some $6 million, which would be our share, and I skipped the number, $6.9 million for Caples and Carriage House renovation. And with that, I love this stuff, so I'm sorry if I went a bit long, but I'd be glad to take any questions.
I have a couple.
Chris, is it intended that these new buildings will have generator backup?
So, yes and no. I'll tell you what we are working on to maybe answer your question a little bit differently. We are right now working with our facilities team and consultants, and this has been in the works, but we've had lack of dollars. So that's where things have held up. To bring the Heiser building, it has a generator, but it doesn't power the whole building. To put Heiser on a whole building generator, put ACE on a whole building generator, library's already on a whole building generator. Hamilton Center is on a whole building generator, and we're looking to see, can we get our core buildings on generator power? It will make us more storm ready and more storm resilient. But we don't intend at this point to put the entire campus on generator power. That's what we feel is feasible at this moment. Heiser, ACE, and the buildings I've already mentioned. Sudikoff, I believe, is on a whole building generator. Jeff is saying yes. So this is on a whole building generator. The police department is on a whole building generator.
So one of the reasons why we can't open as quickly as we might like to is that the dorms, it's always going to be summer, it's always going to be hot, and the power's going to be off, and the air conditioning won't work, and we can't perhaps open campus because students have no place to live. And so I just would like for you to comment on the remedy for that.
Well, I think it would be ideal if all the dormitories could be on full, generator power, but I believe we could function with this if we could get our core academic buildings on whole generator power. That is the first focus. It would be ideal. It is a matter of time and a matter of cost in terms of bringing all the residence halls in every building to have full generator power. It's a significant cost.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have before us, I need a motion for approval of the 2024-2025 legislative budget request for fixed capital outlay.
I still have a few questions for Mr. Kinsley.
We're going to
Motion, second the questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this way we get the proper posture, because theoretically, if no one moved, there's no reason to have Q&A.
Gotcha.
Yes. So
I'll make a motion.
thank you. So Trustee Cart makes the motion for the approval of the 2024-2025 legislative budget request for fixed capital outlay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Questions?
Any questions?
Got it. So, so can I clarify, we're voting for this to be our priority list that we send to the Board of Governors, and then they decide what they approve? Is that correct?
Well, yes, the Board of Governors will take this list, and the board by statute is required to develop what's called a PICO priority list. And that's partially, let me finish that, then I want to come back to Mary's question, because your question reminded me of something. So, Board of Governors has to rank order every university's project, assigning a value to each university's #1 project and #2 project, and any other projects that the legislature has previously provided funding for, but it's not fully complete. And that they take that, and there's a scoring metric. It's somewhat statutory. There's statutory components, and then the board has adopted regulations to deal with other components. And we've been very fortunate. For example, our Hamilton classroom renovation project was the #1 project of the entire system for 2 years running, based on criteria. So this board, we try to recommend projects that we feel will get a very high ranking based on need and other things to the Board of Governors. But that's what the Board of Governors will do. They'll rank order the list of all universities. They'll vet it to make sure we haven't made any technical errors. They submit that to the governor and the legislature, and then the governor makes his budget recommendations, and the legislature does what the legislature does. But this list does inform the process. The PICO is only for E&G educational facilities. So back to the generator question, we would not ask for state money for housing from PICO because housing isn't an E&G component. The one building, #2, the mixed-use building I mentioned, we're asking for the E&G, the classroom portion, the classroom, student support, student services components to be part of that, but the other part will be through the traditional housing process. That's not state appropriated. So sorry to belabor that a bit, but that was your question.
And so what's the timeline on that? Because you said that we can revisit and edit this. When do we need to get this list to them, and what's the timeline for when they approve?
So we need to get the list to the Board of Governors, I believe, July 1st. It's better if we get it to them earlier, because what if we made a mistake? It's better to get that corrected. In terms of amending this list, list can be amended up and all the way until we get to session. And I'll point out Pritzker. While we did not amend Pritzker was on the list. We made it known to the Board of Governors, and the President did a wonderful job of making it known to the legislature that although on our list we'd asked for some $5 million, we could really accomplish what was most critical for $3 million. And so we were appropriated a reduced amount. So this list can be modified, I would say, all the way up until session. We just, we would take it back to this board for consideration.
Thank you. Any other, yes?
Yeah, I had a question. This actually might be for President Corcoran as well. I noticed, especially on the first item, even though the first year is a $10 million request, out years are 23.8 and then 34 million. Once it gets approved, say, by the state, will they rank them higher as it's a project ongoing, it'll continue? And if so, are you confident? How confident are you of that?
Yeah, that's part of the scoring that Chris alluded to, is that if you're already a project that's been partially funded, you're given a priority ranking and a priority funding. And normally the legislature looks at it and says, okay, you can't even start construction until you're at about 80%. So the legislature looks at it and says, there's no sense just having $10 or $15 million out there for
once they've committed, they assume that this is going to...
Then they add.
Okay.
But there's no guarantee you get year 2 or year 3. And so part of the strategy long-term for us to move as quickly as possible would be to go back again this legislative session, ask for recurring funding, and ask for permission to use that recurring funding to potentially bond against to break ground faster. This process right here, although these are great projects and we'd like to get them all done as quickly as possible, if we just went through the PICO process, I don't think you'd see us breaking ground until somewhere around 4 years from now, which isn't fast enough.
Trustee Reed, sorry.
I just have a question about where this building is going. I'm not entirely sure on that. So the use building, where would that be?
Under
Is
the
that-
current master plan that you guys, that's been in existence for a long time.
Which is
it's
out of
on-
date,
It's,
yeah.
it's on the southern side of the Dort Promenade where the Palmer buildings are.
So it is going on that. There was some discussion
I
about
don't know,
that.
we can amend our master plan. We just want the building.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious as to where it's going.
It's not.
It's a
I'm-
big building. It would be a big addition to the footprint, so just trying to get a sense of that.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not, that doesn't, this application does not mean it's going there.
Okay.
Yeah, I will just speak to that too, just based on experience. Even when any building, regardless of funding and regardless of the master plan, when you get the engineer out and they assess the site conditions, I'm thinking of University of Florida, they found there was a bald eagle nest and they had to move a parking garage a couple hundred yards. So yes, it will be in that, likely in that general vicinity, but site conditions will dictate the actual exact placement of the facility.
Thank you. All right, do we have a vote on the motion that's been made and seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I need a motion for the approval of the summer renovations, Palmer Buildings and Reichert/Night House. Can somebody make a motion on that?
Is Chris going to make a presentation?
Well, I was going to have him make the motion, then we can have discussion of it.
So moved.
Okay,
Second for discussion.
second. Okay, go ahead. Let's talk about the summer renovation.
So this may be attempted humor, I don't know, but classic tempus fugit. I realize, time is fleeting,
Yes.
and also time is money. And that really applies to these projects. The president is pressing me and my team to accomplish as much as we possibly can, because it is so important that we show our new students, our existing students, that we are not going to wait as we tried, but we did not, the collective we, I wasn't here, many of you were not here 5 or 6 years ago, but we didn't accomplish that multi-use, multi-purpose building. So we're going to try to press as hard as we can. The cost, if we had been able to do what we needed to do 5, 10 years ago, oh my gosh, when rates were low, it would have been amazing. But we're where we are at today, so we're pressing as hard as we can. We are going to work very carefully, work with the faculty, work with the staff to see if we can deoccupy Palmer E, Palmer A, Palmer C, Palmer D, which are all the academics, and keeping Palmer B in reserve, try to get them in a posture to where we can demolish those buildings. It is going to be a monumental task, but I'm very confident our team is up to the task. It's those external factors of contractors, permitting, other forces that could cause delay, but we're going to do our very best to move this forward, knowing how important it is to the college and me personally, not to waste a dime and not to waste a minute if we can. So that addresses the Palmers. We're looking to demolish them ultimately as quickly as we can. The Reichert and Night Houses, these are on 58th Street. Night House is the very first one. It's a pinkish hue. It's the very first property on 58th Street. And then there's Reichert House. Night, it can only be used for storage. It cannot be renovated. That you solve a lot of deferred maintenance right there by taking down Night House. We've gotten the best use we can out of Reichert. We've used it to house various employees over the years. We're throwing good money after bad, keeping Reichert up. So that's the focus in terms of what's in the agenda today. We also are going to be working hard on the car museum. Some of you may not be aware, the college has title to that car museum property. We've asked that tenant, thank you, Mr. Galvano, to vacate in accordance with the terms of the lease, and we hope to renovate that building and make it, put it in good condition for as many of our employees as we possibly can, and to service some student needs. And we met with the architect, Christy Itzafrisco, our AVP for facilities planning, and myself met with our architects this morning to talk about many projects, including the campus master plan. I just think we're going to be meeting almost every day, so we can do, get this accomplished as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you. So can we have a vote, please, on the approval of the summer renovations?
I have a couple of questions about this.
Me too.
So, and one of them is about permitting. So if I understand, your plan is to start demolishing the Palmer buildings, which are currently occupied by a lot of different programs. And I'm wondering, when is your plan for demolition? And what is the permit status for the demolition? I understand that the building of the next project on top of it will take a while, but where are you with the permits for demolition?
I'll answer that. The process now is getting you guys to approve us moving forward so that we don't delay another year after year after year. That involves us working with the faculty, working with the car museum. It's 64,000 square feet, and the bulk of the car museum is in better condition than much of our Palmer buildings. But the remaining parts of the car museum would need walls and need the permitting process. And so what I have pushed our team on is enough is enough. This has gone on way too long. I want you to move as fast as you possibly can, consult with the faculty. Let's figure out where those relocations can happen. They have to be in pristine condition so that you guys are moving from a certain facility to a better facility. And so that time frame is as fast as we possibly can move forward, working with you all.
I'm asking, when do you anticipate actually demolishing the Palmer buildings? And whether you have permits in place for the demolition of the Palmer buildings?
The answer is as fast as possible and no.
No. And so it had been suggested to me earlier that this project could be fast-tracked because there were permits in place from when the demolition was proposed 5 years ago. And part of my concern is that there's a disparity between the plan from 5 years ago and the plan from now in terms of what buildings would be demolished and what wouldn't. So this talks about all of the Palmer buildings, including B, in addition to the Counseling and Wellness Center. That's what's on the agenda for today. But if you go back to the report that was sent to the Board of Governors in 2019 with the proposed action, it doesn't talk about the B building at all, and it doesn't talk about the CWC. So my concern is about if you're trying to, there's a lot of logistical things, and I understand we can work together to try and find solutions for all the different faculty laboratories, workspaces, offices that have to be moved, and there's a considerable number of them. That can occur, but are there permits in hand to do this, and when do you anticipate demolition?
You just asked that question, Amy, so I'll answer it again. We're going to do it as fast as possible. There's no permits in hand. And as for the changes, this is before you guys as the trustees to vote. So the two discrepancies that you talk about, yes, that whole, ultimately in the master plan, that whole field, and probably 5 or 6 of the challenge plans, all of it was cleared, including the 58th Street houses, and most of them. So what we're saying is we want to move forward. The wellness plan, because it's not part of the Palmer buildings, would have to wait. That demolition wouldn't happen until the fall because we got to go get BOG approval for that. The rest we do not. But you guys are authorizing us to do that so we don't have to come back to you. And in the fall, if the wellness building's still there, they're over capacity, they need more space, and services are in demand. And so all of that could be accommodated, whether we left them there until the fall we had approval, or we moved them but left the building there empty until the fall. That's what we're asking you guys for approval so that we can move forward as quickly as possible to transform the campus.
I also have a few questions. So first, where exactly is the money, like what pot of money is this coming from?
The demolition or new buildings?
The demolition.
That would be coming from the existing funds that we have from the legislature.
Okay. And so my concern is mainly around B-dorm. So right now we've already have students assigned to that dorm. They've already signed contracts that they're going to pay. And so I'm very concerned about having enough space for the students next year. So this previous year, at the beginning of the fall, B-dorm was offline because they were doing some renovations with the pipes. And it created a pretty stressful situation because pay dorms were tripled up. There was no room or capacity to move anyone around, especially, I can't stress enough, your housing situation when you're a first year and coming here has a huge effect on your retention. If you get into a bad situation and you have no options to move and housing has no ability to solve solutions, it creates a really, really bad environment and bad experience. And so I'm concerned that we're taking out a lot of rooms that not just rooms, but B-dorm is a particular place on campus in which it's the cheapest. It is the only room where you can have a single dorm room, and it's particularly well equipped for our fourth years who are thesising, who can, one, have that private space, but also be so close to the library. And so I'm concerned that we're taking away all of those rooms without having this timeline of, okay, but the dorm's gonna be half made at that point. There's no sort of plan about these 60 students are going to fit into this space on this side of campus, especially because I know there's been conversations about demolition of the pay dorms, which is like a whole nother thing and way more dorms. So I'm getting very concerned about whether or not we're gonna have space next year and how disruptive that's gonna be. So is there a possibility of approving these plans except for B-dorm? And then once we kind of hear more about the PICO funds and we see the timeline and it's a little more worked out, then we can discuss how that transition might work. Does that make sense?
No. I get your point. And honestly, you guys are the trustees, so you can make the motion, and whatever the will of the trustees is what we follow. I'll go through your points. One is B-dorm houses currently 31, 32 students. I can't remember the exact number. It's 31 or 32 students. Two is that Chris mentioned to you that right now we're holding back on doing any demolition to B-dorm until we are absolutely confident and come back before you with our housing strategy to make sure that none of those issues that you discussed are raised. Third is the same, the pay dorms are not before you. Currently, with the reports that we've gotten back on the pay dorms, and the recommendation is, quite frankly, is don't put students in there. So we're gonna, over the summer, go in and do as much as we possibly can to 2 of the pay dorms. One, we're not gonna plan on housing anybody, but our plan is not to put, if we can avoid it, students in those dorms, but we'll have them as backup as we would have Palmer as a backup. In addition to that, what we're doing is currently working with our housing bonding capacity to see adding 133 new portable beds for 2 years until the new facility can be built. So what we will have is new portable 133 beds in addition to the existing beds. Right now we anticipate we're going to be somewhere in the ballpark of all of this moving forward. We'll have 600 plus beds, and we're going into Dort, we're going into Goldstein, we're going into the letter dorms, and we're also with the money that the legislature has given us, because housing has been a criticism of the students, is we're looking at new carpet, new paint, new air conditioning, new everything for those dorms, so that when they come in, they're excellent, second to none. So all of that is what's going to transpire, but what before you is authorizing us to move forward as expeditiously as possible, and I assure you, Trustee Keenan, we will not move forward in any way, shape, or form that does not adequately and completely improve the housing situation for our students. And we anticipate a larger class, so we're anticipating even a need for greater beds.
Thank you. We have a motion pending, and so we're going to take a vote on the motion. No.
She can.
You can make an amendment.
So my amendment would be
Propose an amendment.
Would be to go forward with the plan with the exception that you may begin the process of getting permits to demolish B-dorm, but that is not yet approved to fully demolish it until we're sure about the number of beds, about the number of students we're going to house, because I'm just very concerned about we demolish it and then we get into a bad situation. And so I think this still takes into consideration, this allows you to move forward, but it would still have to come back to the board to officially demolish it.
Trustee Keenan, would you be willing to consider an amended amendment?
Yeah.
Where we approve this contingent on a housing plan approved by this board.
So what do you mean in terms
So
of a
we would
housing
approve
plan?
this
Mm-hmm.
contingent on the president coming back with a housing plan acceptable to the board. In other words, we're not holding up, we're approving this, it's a go,
Mhm.
but the housing plan has to come back for further action.
So how is that quite different in terms of, so we would still in the future?
It authorizes the president to go ahead with everything that has very long runways.
Mhm.
And while he's entertaining that process, we will have more detail on the housing plan. One thing I would like to point out is USF is building dorms right next door. They can't fill them right away. And the president of USF committed in front of the Board of Governors that she would entertain collaboration with New College if she could not fill those dorms, and we could. So I don't know when that.
They're opening for fall of '24
Fall
is
of
their
24,
schedule.
and we're having those conversations.
So that's an option. In terms of faculty concerns, I hope we're going to consider Caples now that it is habitable as a place for possible relocation, and consider suspending our practice just during construction for our practice of second offices and emeritus offices, because we're doubling up on faculty offices at a time where maybe if we could suspend it temporarily, it would make it easier for everybody else. So there's lots of options to go forward with this and to try and take care of people's needs. And I know the lab people are the ones most concerned because they have the highest requirements.
So, Madam Chair, can I clarify where we are? 'Cause I know we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, and we're past 4 o'clock. And so there was a motion to approve the summer plans, renovation plans. You proposed an amendment that pulled out B. You're either substituting an amendment for it to make it, and I think the president said very clearly it's coming back before the board anyway.
So
And if
no
you
need
want-
for the amendment.
I don't think there is a need for your amendment. Otherwise, we could go back to your amendment, see if there's a second. If there isn't, then the motion is not amended, and we vote on the main motion.
So to clarify, my amendment would just be
About
B-dorm to hold out until we have those specific numbers of, we have this many rooms and this many students, and we are going to be okay for this fall, which we should be able to get pretty soon by the next meeting, I believe. So that shouldn't delay. If we have the space, as you say, and it's confirmed, we can go ahead with demolition. I just want to be extra sure because I've experienced the housing on campus. I've experienced this past year where we had a dorm down. So I want to make sure, especially because we don't know the status of all the pay dorms, and we've gotten those results where we don't know exactly how much renovations we can do and how many number of dorms we'll have. So this is just simply to wait on those specific numbers before B-dorm. But everything else with the plan is good to go.
I think the motion that Trustee Rui said is more conducive to where we want to move forward.
From my understanding, I think it's the same thing. I'm
She-
just kind of clarifying what I mean
No,
by
it's not,
housing
because
plan.
we're withholding approval for staff to go forward with all, you can't, so they'd have to go back again for a demolition. They'd have to go through the process twice.
Madam Chair, let's see if there's a second before we have further discussion.
I don't second it, no.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. President? What Grace has suggested as an amendment, practically, is that your intention anyway?
Correct.
To not do that? So
Yeah, yes, it is. I mean, but let's just say hypothetically that you guys chose me as interim president, and the worst-case scenario that you could possibly anticipate happens. I would resign in disgrace, or you guys should fire me on the spot.
And
Okay.
Trustee Keenan, perhaps an alternate motion from you, alternate amendment from you that would authorize President and staff to go forward with the understanding that they're not going to displace students in B-dorm until there's appropriate accommodations, which I think is the intention.
I think what Trustee Rui said was that you approve the motion subject to us coming back with a housing plan for the fall.
Okay, so Trustee Keenan's motion has failed for lack of a second. Are you remaking your motion?
I'm fine with it.
Then we're back on the main question.
So back on them.
I would just call
There-
the main
there-
question.
So we'll call-
Just
We,
call the
we,
main
we,
question.
we are asking the president to come back with a housing plan. We can always rescind our action if we are not satisfied with the results, but we don't hold things up. I don't want to disadvantage all the staff having a prepared space that meets their needs by holding things up and making it more expensive and delaying it. So if the president doesn't come back with a plausible housing plan, then we can change our mind.
So we're calling the motion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
What is the motion exactly?
It's the motion that's to approve the summer renovations of Palmer Buildings, Reichert, and Night House. That's the original motion that was made.
Aye.
Thank you. Any other votes?
So
Okay.
I'm opposed.
Okay. All right, so do we need a roll call?
You don't,
It was
Okay.
2 opposed.
So 2 opposed
you
and,
could call it on voice.
yeah. We can call it on voice, okay?
It
So
show it
we're good.
passed.
Motion carried.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, go do.
All right, we're going to skip down. We've skipped over one section, but I'd like to get the collective bargaining agreements, which I don't think should be the subject of ongoing questions. For presentation, we have Erica Worthy, our Chief Human Resource Officer. Thank you, Erica. Appreciate your patience.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. You got the floor. Thank you. Just make sure you speak into the mic so people can hear.
Will do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, good afternoon. It's good to be presenting before you guys today. I know that back in January, the board deferred the ratification of the United Faculty of Florida contract due to the transition of new leadership and the new strategic direction of the college. We ultimately paused all negotiations at that point with all units, including the United Faculty of Florida, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, which is ASME, and the Police Benevolent Association, which is PBA. In early April, I met with Chair Jenks and with President Corcoran, and they gave approval to go back to the negotiations table with a good faith effort to meet with the union representatives. As a result of the work, we have 2 tentative agreements, one for UFF and one for ASME. The tentative changes will be to the 2021 and 2024 collective bargaining agreements for both units. Negotiations is still underway for PBA, and we hope to come back to you in July with that agreement. Although we have several agreements before you, or articles before you, for the sake of time, and we're late for today, I'm going to only focus on the salaries. These changes, if approved by the board, will go into effect July 10th, 2022. So as outlined for the UFF tentative agreement, the increase is 5% or 5.25% dependent upon their current salary, capped at $5,000 for employees making over $100,000. If annualized with taxes and benefits, the all-in cost is $472,311 for fiscal year 2023. And then there's also the one-time corrective payment for a 9-month faculty tied to a fiscal year 2021 of $120,000, just a little over that. Comparison to last year, the increases were an average of 3.16%, and they were retroactive to the academic year, beginning of the academic year. For ASME, we are giving the same 5% and 5.25%, depending on their current rate of pay. And if annualized, that will be $115,241 for the fiscal year of 2023. We also are providing raising the minimum wage up to $15 an hour with a cost of a little over $24,000, and providing a $1 compression adjustment to the staff. For comparison, last year the increase was 2% on average, and that was back to the academic year. And for the out-of-unit staff, which is A&P employees and executive staff, that's for members like me and people in the front here, we are also asking for a 5%, or 5.25%, depending on current salary, with a cap of $5,000 for employees making over $100,000. If annualized with taxes and benefits, it's $417,546 for fiscal year 2023. For comparison, we provided an across-the-board $2,000 increase last year. So for UFF, ASME, and out-of-use staff, the all-in cost, if approved today by the board, will be a little over $1.2 million. And this marks the largest increase for New College and for faculty and staff ever. So I want to thank President Corcoran because he is showing his support towards the faculty and the staff, and is showing value to the work that they're doing here for New College. So thank you for that, and I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you.
Yep. Madam Chair, I would entertain a motion at this point. And
Move the approval of the ratification of updated collective bargaining agreement between New College of Florida and the United Faculty of Florida and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees.
Let's do all three of them.
Both items, one motion.
Well, there's three.
Oh, there's three?
Yeah.
And,
Out of unit.
well, I'll take that one separately.
Okay.
Second.
So there's, okay.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the first two items.
On the first two items. Okay. So all those,
Any questions?
any questions?
Debate.
Debate, okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The motion carries for the first two items of approval, so the record's clear. It's the approval of the
So
ratification.
now I'll move approval of recommendation for changes to salary and benefits for out-of-unit employees.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
So, Erica, this is being taken outside of the union negotiating process and just being handled administratively?
Yes.
Okay.
These are, I think, for people that aren't under the agreements, right? Okay. Vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. We did it. All right, couple items left.
Seven.
I have this one.
Yeah.
Seven, yeah. Okay, so at this time, I would like, I'm sorry, cough? No. Trustee Spalding, he's chair of the Presidential Search Committee, to provide an update and discuss the items that you're prepared to discuss before us today. And with that, you got the floor.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an item here for your approval and then also some information. The Presidential Search Committee has met, and we have spent a good deal of time crafting, discussing, deliberating, amending at great length a long criteria. According to the BOG regulations, the Board of Trustees has to approve that position criteria so that we can launch the Presidential Search Committee. And you have that criteria before you to approve. The compensation analysis, we have a not finalized analysis we received from an outside consultant. So that's has not yet been briefed to the committee in its full. We plan to do that very soon, at which time the committee would then craft the required compensation recommendation, which would come to this board for its approval of that. But we're not prepared to do that at this time. And then lastly, I will just mention, this is just for your information, you also have a list here in addition to our website, sending this for the criteria, in addition to our website, a distribution list, advertising and various things like LinkedIn, social media, we specifically are going to put it in a list of publications which you have there before you, and that's just more of a for information to let you know about. There's no action required, as I understand it.
That's correct.
So the only action I have, Adam, I have for you now is approval of their criteria so we can get this posted as soon as possible. If you do approve it, we would post it as soon as this Friday and get the process moving so we can stay on schedule.
And the various sources where they'll be posted is also in our materials, correct?
The list of where the,
yeah,
that's
yes.
at the end. It's just a list of publications. These are particular publications in which we would advertise the posting.
So do we have a motion to approve the position criteria presented by the Presidential Search Committee so we can start the advertising process?
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Trustee Karp, thank you. Any discussion on the position criteria to be promulgated to the public?
I have a couple. So first off, I would really like to see that there's more discussion about the academic program we have at New College. There's really no conversation about the fact we have no grades, how the academic system works here, which I think is very important when we're going to be looking for people for this position. They should understand that, and most importantly, be very on board with that, because that's fundamental to what we do at New College. And second, there is a lot of grammatical errors in this document, which I'm just really disappointed about. And so I would like personally that this document be rewritten, but I don't know exactly how that might go about. Could I do an amendment where I have some suggestions where they go back and make these edits and then bring it back to us?
So there's a motion pending. It has been seconded to approve the criteria. If you want to make an amendment to that motion, you can do so.
Okay. So my amendment would be, well, it doesn't necessarily make sense. So the issue I have is that I'm not comfortable sending out a document with errors publicly when we're in the same paragraph saying that we want to be the best liberal arts college in the country. And then, I'm just disappointed in the writing, so I'd like to see something else. So I don't know if that makes sense to do an amendment, because my amendment will contradict the original motion.
It's a common practice to direct staff to address typos, grammatical errors. That doesn't need to rise to the level of a motion. If you're making that comment to the board and to the President's Search Committee, they can go back and scrub it.
And we've been making those corrections all along on the assumption that wasn't necessary. So if you have particular typographical corrections,
And if you wanna
please
share.
just share them. We can
Sure.
incorporate those.
Okay.
In terms of the larger question you raised, we actually had a long discussion of that at the search committee and chose specifically not to go into extensive detail, precisely because of where we are in this moment of debate, which is we wanted to get something out to attract attention to the need for having a presidential search. That person will get additional information from our website and other sources about the particulars. This is to open up conversation with potential candidates, it's not the contract. And we didn't think it was the search committee's position to actually force the board to take a position on various things that there might be other discussions about.
I'm pretty sure the board has been pretty clear that we're still on board with having a no grades
I
academic
understand that,
system.
but nothing here, it's specifically written, nothing changes any of that. But nothing is also added here that we didn't think was necessary for the criteria of the kind of person we're looking for in the search.
Well, I think Trustee Keenan's point is well taken, because this is a very unique academic environment. And if the candidate isn't prepared to support a no-grade environment that's a contract system that requires a thesis, that has independent study periods and high-impact learning opportunities, then that's not New College. And so we want a match between that candidate and this academic environment. That's not to predicate or presuppose curriculum or other things that, a president is in charge of, but we don't want a candidate coming to this campus who doesn't support the academic infrastructure, because it is so unique. And so if someone comes here thinking, I don't want contracts or grades, then we don't want them.
Yeah, because this document, it's not brief. We have plenty of space to be able to fit this in and possibly remove some other, like, we repeat a couple statements about liberal arts honors college that we've said. So I think there's certainly room to include those things. And as Trustee Ruiz said, we want to make sure that they know what they're getting into. Because if you read this blindly, you didn't know it was for New College, it sounds like we're every other small liberal arts college. And we don't want somebody who is expecting that to be the case, because we're quite different.
Yeah.
So
I'd
like to make a comment.
If that's the will of the board, that's fine. I just don't think that, this is to open a process which would interview people and obviously weed out all sorts of things. But if we can add some simple language to that effect, I don't object to that. I just don't think we did not see that as the job of the committee.
Trustee
I'd like to make a comment.
Yep, thank you.
So I think those are great questions to ask in an interview, but I think it's inappropriate for the search criteria. I think that's describing not the nature of the quality of the candidate we're looking for, but it's describing the philosophy of the school. If we want to direct them to places where that philosophy is already revealed, great, whether it's the website, other materials, let's do that. But I think those are very proper interview questions.
Well, so the only thing is that I agree that it might not be included in criteria, but the entire first page is exactly what we're talking about and describing the school, the environment, some of the goals we have. So I just don't know why that specific information would not be included when we are describing a lot of basic facts and information and central goals of the college. So could I...
And I would say if there are some things that are objectionable in those descriptions that are there now, then we can, certainly discuss those if that's problematic.
Okay, so how about what my amendment might be is to add in information about our academic system to a little more detail. It could be 2 sentences, and I think there's certainly some areas in which we could take out, nothing of substance to this document, but maybe some information is repeated in that first page. So I think we have room to add in at least 2 or 3 sentences describing our academic system as it is now, including the fact that it's a very independent college in which we provide a lot of we put a lot of responsibility on the students for their own academics. We have a no-grade contract system, should be noted, so at least they know to go research that, so that when it comes time to questioning, they know that, or it's a signal that this is the type of college that does something unique and they might be interested in that job. So that would be my amendment to this.
If I could suggest, it looks like the 3rd paragraph down would be an appropriate place to sort of add in just a brief sentence about that. So where it's talking about the academic rigor of the program, having a short sentence that said something about New College has a tradition of a contract-based, no-grade educational program where students receive narrative evaluations from faculty. And I think having just one brief sentence in there would be really important and helpful. Right? This description gives a lot of detail.
That last part of your, I was trying to write down what you were saying real quick. The last part you added after no grade environment.
My language isn't really great there.
But I was trying to capture the intent.
Having the contracts, no grades,
where the students
and narrative evaluations.
Narrative evaluation, that was it.
I think those are sort of three central things.
So, we need the language spelled out.
Yeah, if we have an amendment, it's shouldn't be open-ended. And if that's the proposal on the amendment, then...
I mean, can we just say that we direct the committee to make revisions to streamline the description for grammar and felicity, including adding in paragraph 3 a brief sentence that emphasizes the distinctive nature of the New College academic program, contracts, no grades, and narrative evaluations.
Perfect. And thesis as well.
If thesis isn't there, it ought to be.
And ISP, someone just added too.
It's getting
So I
longer.
think you can
So I
summarize that
have-
in
I
two
have-
For granted.
sentences. Yeah.
Got it.
hmm
Can you read it back?
I think we can.
We have the recording as well.
The o-
So
The only thing I was going to suggest is perhaps we, instead of sending it back to the entire committee, maybe we just authorize the chair of the committee to make those changes and move forward with it, because there's a time delay in taking this back and redebating it in front of the committee as well. As a committee member, I'm comfortable with that.
And if,
And I'd be fine with that as well, but I just want to make sure of the points we made. Individual contracts,
No grades.
the grades,
Narrative evaluation.
narrative evaluations.
evaluations, the thesis,
Yeah, that last one's the thesis. probably.
ISPs.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
it ends in a
like
thesis.
language about
You can do it in a sentence.
Yeah.
students,
And then in that
students'
third paragraph, I think
ability
it's
to
the correct
direct their education.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but, and then perhaps Trustee Keenan, since, if you've been doing some line edits, if you could contribute to the editing process, that would be helpful.
If you could send the line up, that'd be very helpful if you have.
Yep.
it.
I can do that.
Okay,
Teamwork.
all right, so do we have,
So it's,
vote? Yeah.
your motion's withdrawn.
Yep.
Trustee Reed has made that motion. It's
I
going
will
to get a-
second it. Yeah.
Second, okay.
And the motions, to be clear, is amending this with the direction to the chair of the search committee, who is also the designee of this Board of Trustees, to modify those changes or make those changes and move forward, given the essence of time, as Trustee Cristaldi said.
In his discretion.
His discretion. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I think Grace.
I seconded
Okay.
Trustee Reed's motion.
You ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor of the motion as
Amendment to the
amendment to
the motion.
To the motion to approve the position criteria for presidential search. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed?
Nay.
If you think you've heard it, or you can do a voice vote.
Motion carries.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Now you're on the main motion
All right, now
as amended,
we're on the main motion as amended,
and I just call the roll.
and we'll call the roll on that.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Bauerlein,
Yes.
Trustee Jaco,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Keenan,
Yes.
Trustee Kessler,
Yes.
Trustee Mackey,
Yes.
Trustee Reed,
Yes.
Trustee Rufo,
Yes.
Trustee Ruiz,
Yes.
Trustee Spalding,
Yes.
Chair Jinks,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cristaldi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
more than ready.
Some people are still here.
So Chair Jenks, just for clarification, we're removing compensation analysis from the agenda. We're not acting on
Yeah,
it.
it's not ready. It's not here.
But we have a preliminary, we're going to get briefed on the committee. The committee will then submit
Yeah.
for whatever's necessary according to the Board of Governors rules to
Right.
this board for any approval.
Thank you.
So we want to get the advertising out, so. Yep. We are at the point of our agenda where we are going to turn it over to Interim President Corcoran to discuss the new college mascot.
Do you have it? Hold on one second.
Don't put it up on this, yeah.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Do you want this, Eric?
The théâtre about.
Okay.
Grind down the edges.
Thank you,
people
Chair. I would, what I would like to do is be very brief and introduce a student. So we did the survey results were what's the word, skewed or, hacked or whatever. But during that process, one of the students came forward and came up with an idea for a mascot. That mascot was shared around to some of our trustees, certainly some of the administration. I've had conversations on a regular basis with our two co-presidents. And what they had said was that it needed to be uniquely New College, something that was clear. And they came up with some other examples that were not even on the sheet, some very innovative ones. But this one was also discussed, and they thought that this would be certainly acceptable, and incorporated those concepts. But it was led by a student all on her own that just, when the survey was taken, she was out by the dorms over here on this side of the campus and came up with this idea. She actually rendered a drawing, and that drawing was passed around. And I would like her to just tell the rest of the story, because I'm probably not doing it justice, but Anna is here with us. Just, if you want to introduce yourself, tell what your studies, and then go into the story, would be great.
Speaking of
Absolutely.
the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can raise it if you need to.
Perfect, thank you.
Here you go. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Anna Lazara. I'm a first year here at New College, a rising second year. I'm a humanities AOC and a museum studies secondary field. And I have a little bit of story of how I came up with this idea, if you don't mind me sharing that with you. As an artist, I never know when creativity will strike. I will say, though, I am grateful that creativity struck me at what would become a pivotal time in New College's history. I was approaching the end of my first year at New College, this place that I've come to love so much, when I heard the news that the college was seeking a new mascot. I reviewed the list of mascot ideas on the survey sent out to students, faculty, and staff, but if I'm being honest, I felt like none of the options really encapsulated the spirit of New College. So I started thinking about this. What is the New College spirit? One of my favorite things about New College is the powerful sense of community here. The small population here allows us to create meaningful relationships with our classmates, coworkers, and colleagues, and together we have created a unique campus culture where you can always spot a familiar face. Another one of my favorite things about New College is the beautiful campus in which we live, work, study, and play. I don't think there is any other college in the world where you can choose to do homework with a bayfront view, or in a hammock strung between two palms, or even perched up in a banyan tree. That's where creativity struck. The New College spirit, for me, is the combination of the supportive community and the stunning natural landscape. Both of these things, I believe, are perfectly represented in the form of a mighty banyan tree. There are many across our campus, including next to Hamilton Center and College Hall. Their sturdy branches extend out over the area below, providing a shady spot, just as our classmates, faculty, and staff support us when we need a hand. Their strong foundation and deep roots help them withstand even the wildest storms, just as this institution has remained throughout tumultuous times of change throughout its history. With these metaphors in mind, the banyan tree just seemed like the perfect fit to represent our beloved New College. I quickly sketched my idea on the back of a piece of lined paper. The process was quite exhilarating, actually. I had to get into the spirit of a mighty banyan as a sports mascot, so I was listening to a classic training playlist, Eye of the Tiger, The Final Countdown, you know the deal. 30 minutes later, with the help of a reference image of a buff, flexing arm, the New College of Florida mighty banyan came to life. Of course, any new mascot for New College would not be complete without some recognition of our beloved current mascot, the null set. Don't worry, I didn't forget. If you look closely at my sketch and the final logo, the null set will live on forever as the banyan's eyebrows. For New College students, the null set symbolizes a space for growth, opportunity, and endless possibility, just as this institution will continue to be, which is why I felt it was necessary to give this symbol a permanent home in our new official mascot. Thank you for listening to the story of how the mighty banyan came to be, and I truly hope the New College community comes to love this mascot as much as I do. Let it serve as a reminder that New College is an extraordinary place with an undeniable spirit where we never stop learning, discovering, and growing. Thank you.
And with that, can we unveil Anna's mighty banyan in
Whoa. All right.
There we go. Do you want to show the original?
Yeah, show the original.
Yeah, and so she, Anna,
awesome.
I can't remember, I think you told me, she mentioned it to somebody that she knew in student affairs, I think, and that person said you ought to show it to the athletic director, and Mariano basically said, have you seen this drawing from the student? And Mariano, the athletic director, loved the concept, so then I asked her to come by, and she gave us her original drawing that she sketched, which we will, subject to you guys' approval, which the caricature was taken from.
Wow.
And so, subject to you guys approving it, this would hang in College Hall in perpetuity.
She sign it?
Yeah, down here.
That's awesome.
I
great.
really enjoyed your presentation, too.
Will we get like coasters and things like some of all that stuff, the buttons and, what do you call that stuff?
So,
We'll work on the swag for sure.
Swag,
Yeah.
okay.
So first, I would like to thank Anna. That's a fantastic presentation, and your rendering is great. And so what I'd like to do is move to have the Board of Trustees endorse this as our athletic mascot. And so I'm saying that particular language as somebody earlier in the public comments said, it's in student government statutes that our mascot is the null set. And so we gain our power from the trustees, from the state, from the Board of Governors. It's recognized. So we can't actually officially change the mascot. It would need to be changes within student government, which we're happy to discuss, bring to the Senate in fall when school is back in session. But I also recognize that we need to, the null set isn't as interesting for our athletic uniforms. And there are many instances where there are multiple mascots at universities, so it's not going to be too bad over the summer. But this could have been a really fantastic opportunity for the trustees, for our interim president, to build relationships with the students. And that just did not happen. And this was not a process of determining what our mascot was going to be that was satisfactory to many in the New College community, the students, many of the faculty, many of the alumni. And so I really appreciate the energy and the effort that you put in to try and start that process. But I did offer many times to help to make sure that this process is going to be proper and to gain you points with the students, to have that dialogue where you come and you want to show respect to the students, be engaged, work on this together. But that didn't happen. And so I think this is fantastic, and I don't want to lose this opportunity for the mascot, but we can't technically change it. It's in student government statute. And it's been recognized by the college for nearly 30 years at this point, and so we're more than happy to work together collectively going forward about what official changes we need to do. But as of right now, my motion is for us to endorse, not to determine the mascot, because we can't really do that. But I think endorsing this for athletics is going to be really fantastic. I think it'll look great on our uniforms. So that will be my motion.
So just a point of legal clarification. It's the Board of Trustees is the only entity that can approve the mascot. And so through the student constitution, I think the most current one doesn't have a reference to mascot, but the one prior does.
It's been in our statutes and our bills for.
I understand, but I just want, because you made the statement, and the board's going to do what it wants on your motion, but from a technical legal standpoint, this board is the only entity that has the authority ultimately to decide what the mascot is. But there is a motion now to approve this mascot with the qualification that it be the athletic mascot, and so you should.
I don't think a motion's been made, but I have a question.
I did make that
Oh, you
motion,
made the
and it
motion?
was seconded,
Oh, to
yeah.
endorse, okay.
To endorse versus-
My question is, Grace said that there can be multiple mascots. We have the null set, we have this proposal. So it's, I guess what I'm looking for is, Mr. Galvano, approving this mascot is technically correct. We can have the student constitution with one mascot and this with another mascot and choose to reconcile it or not?
I just don't, I guess could, but I just don't understand why the Board of Trustees would want to contradict student government when this has been in our jurisdiction. I mean, it's kind of weird in my mind that the board is concerning itself with our mascot when, like, if we wanted to do that, I could have done a full student government process with the faculty. They could have done a whole process, but that didn't happen. And so what I'm trying to propose is a solution that respects the students and their authority and their history, but still involves you all in the process. And I think it's a technicality that the students will care about, but I don't I mean, if the board really wants to get nitpicky and put the hammer down and say, we're the only ones who can decide the mascot, I mean, that's just going to piss more people off, to be frank. And I don't see what we gain from that, because the whole point, we're trying to develop relationships and trust and credibility. And we've been looking for favors from the trustees, from the interim president, to build that trust and credibility. And we haven't been receiving, and I've been trying to get those. And so I think something like this is where we can collaborate. And my motion is something to collaborate on for future of student government, for the faculty, alumni to come together, to have discussions about our mascot. And this still gives us a mascot for our athletics, so we can start getting our uniforms, so they can build your own history off of that. That's still very respectful of the community. And hopefully, the goal is that the community likes the Board of Trustees. And I'm trying to get us to that point. And so that's why I'm being kind of technical with this motion.
If I could add, I think that Trustee Keenan's point that this is an opportunity to build support amongst the students is really important. When decisions are made, it's important to work the room and make sure that people are on board, and that this motion is coming forward, that it was presented very well, but as a coup de théâtre, where people were not aware of what was going on. I think that's sort of an unfortunate optic. And I think having a student propose this, and I think the drawing is lovely, I think this is an opportunity to build consensus and support. And if the idea is to improve retention, to make students feel that they are seen, respected, and valued, it seems like an easy way to sort of do that, right? And I might also just say, maybe green would be better than brown, just to have for colors, but.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair, there's a motion, if there's a second.
I just think, I understand, I mean, and just to be clear, that it's not like there wasn't communication. It's not like there weren't emails going back and forth with the leaders of the student body on what that is. I think the school should have an official mascot. I think that's up to the trustees. There's nothing to say, to your point, that the students still identify with having the null set. But I think you guys should vote on it being the official mascot of the school. And that is 100% in the purview of this Board of Trustees. I think it's to your point, nitpicky to say, okay, this is athletic but not official. It doesn't matter if it's the official mascot of the school, and they still have Student
Well-
government says it's the null set. There's nothing to stop that from happening.
So the point of this is that going forward, we have those processes where we'll go through and we'll reconcile what we want to do for the mascot and, collectively as a community, what we want that to look like, with an understanding that you need something for athletics right now. And this is great. This has history with New College, but as somebody who lives at the college, goes here, interacts with many groups, much more than pretty much anyone at this board, I can tell you that there's a lot of hurt and upset in the way this process has gone. Because what I would say is that how many people from the New College community have you all spoken to about this mascot? Because we didn't even know what it was going to be up until now. And so this is not the end of the mascot, and I think we have a lot of work to do about how we want to market New College and how we want people to see us. But I'm trying to get us to that point where we're not ruining relationships, we're not offending or causing harm. I'm trying to build relationships. And so that's our motion. It was seconded.
Well, there was no second.
I second
Dr.
it.
Reed, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What exactly is the motion?
So
To endorse the Mighty Banyans as our athletic mascot. And so,
Yeah, and then that opens the opportunity for the students to weigh in the fall and to be involved in the process.
mhm.
And there's nothing in this motion that has a problem with the banyan as a symbol, right? And again, I want to thank the student for all their work, right? Creativity and a wonderful presentation. But I think this is an opportunity to do the diplomatic work of building consensus and making it a mascot that students are going to want to get behind. If you want to sell the merch, bring the students on board.
Yeah, so this doesn't prevent you from starting to do anything with the fighting or the Mighty Banyans, doesn't prevent you from starting to market it or anything like that. This is an attempt to allow, especially me, the opportunity to work with the students, to set up processes, to get opinion, to talk about what this mascot means, or is this really where we want to be at? But right now, making this decision, while all of the students are away, when they didn't have any proper notice about this, it looks really bad. It harms our relationship with the students. And for the next 3 years is going to be the student body that's been currently here. Those are going to be our retention numbers. Those are going to be the numbers that we get judged by for the next 3-4 years, which interim president Corcoran gets judged by when we're looking at evaluations. This is the group that's going to be here. And so we need to make sure that we're developing a relationship with them. And I can tell you there are a lot of hurt feelings about how this has gone down. And so this doesn't really stall much. It's just
Okay,
a
so we're going
technicality.
to call the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
We're going to,
Just to finalize, I mean, I've met with you in my office.
Mhm.
You told me that if it was something like, you asked me if I'd seen this. You told me if it was
Yeah.
something like that, that would go over well with the student body. You
Athletic,
emailed it and
yeah.
confirmed it. It's
Mhm.
not like there hasn't been conversations in inclusion.
Yeah.
Have I talked to all of
Well,
the students? No. Have we
so-
sent it out to the students? No. But I think.
Can I jump in here as well? I mean, look, I think we need to remember the locus of decision-making on this decision is with the board. And we have an obligation to make a decision. I think having a provisional mascot is a bad idea. And, it sounds like from what I'm hearing, the process was good. President Corcoran reached out, talked to students, had input. It was designed by a student. I think having two separate mascots seems ill-advised. And I think, frankly, the language about harm and hurt feelings, to me, is manipulative and should be discounted heavily as such. And it seems like we have to make a decision for the best interest of the college, not catering to the feelings of students, perhaps, we don't know this, that are hurt by the banyan tree mascot.
so
If I can
thank you.
just
No,
say-
we've called the question, so the vote's going to be on first, her motion to have this as a provisional mascot. So
That,
if you,
that wasn't her motion.
Yeah, it
Her
was.
motion was to adopt this as the athletic mascot.
well, as the athletic, yes. And
To endorse it.
Right,
To
so-
endorse
The
it
athletic
as an
mascot.
athletic.
So
Yes.
this will be the athletic mascot,
Yep.
period. That's what your motion is.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we're voting on the amendment.
well,
There's no amendment
Amendment, yeah.
because the original approval of the official mascot motion was not made. Trustee Keenan made the first motion, and her motion was to have a qualified mascot, being that this be the athletic mascot as opposed to the official mascot.
As of today.
which will be a new motion if this one
And
doesn't
it's
carry.
been seconded.
Could I ask a question? I wonder if there's a kind of a middle ground here, which it seems that I think the chief problem is, we have two things. One is, I agree with Trustee Keenan has raised some great points about this is an opportunity to build relations. Having said that, I think it'd be wrong for the Board of Trustees to not, to do something which actually undermines its own authority. Is there a way to, I mean, and this is more of a practical question, I think, to you in terms of playing this out. I don't want to pass a motion which somehow defers to a student organization that doesn't have the authority to do something that seems to be confused here.
Well, we've had the authority. It's been respected for nearly 30 years that we've named the mascot.
I guess
And
the
so,
question is with the council, is that legally correct?
The entity that can choose an official mascot is the Board of Trustees. There has been language in the student constitution that is actually, the most recent is the constitution before the current, that had designated, it said, we recognize these symbols, and it designated the empty set, and it said mascot, and it had a motto. But from a legal, and that authority flows from this board. This board has the ultimate determination to make the decision as to what is and is not the mascot.
Is
But
there
there's-
anything improper with just picking the athletic mascot for now and reserving the issue for the overall school mascot for later?
So and that's a good question, because, you know, if we're picking a qualified mascot, how are there legal ramifications when you're getting
Precisely.
into the college athletic organizations, et cetera? I don't know the answer to that right now, but it's not how it's typically done.
so this is just, oh, well, maybe Stanford does it, but so this is temporary. I'm trying to find that middle ground where we're still respecting the students. Because, yeah, we can come down, put the hammer down, and be like, screw the students. Screw what you think about what the mascot should be. We decide, and this is our authority, and we're going to go forward. It's not a good look. This is something the students care about, the community cares about. And this is, I think, athletic mascot is a really happy medium where we can go forward with it. The plans for the mascot can keep going forward, and we can continue to have these conversations in the future about what the official mascot is. But it's very difficult to do that in the summer when nobody's here, when we haven't developed that dialogue with the alumni network, with the faculty. I'm just trying to
Ms.
preserve
Keenan,
relationships.
We've already called the vote, so we're going to take a vote first on whether this board wants to agree that this would be solely an athletic
Yep, for the time being.
mascot for the time being. So that's your motion, it's been seconded, and so I'm going to have the vote called, and you can, yeah, are people still on the Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Trustee Anderson,
No.
trustee Bauerlein,
No.
trustee Jaco,
No.
trustee Karp,
No.
trustee Keenan,
Yes.
trustee Kessler,
No.
trustee Mackey,
No.
trustee Reed,
Yes.
trustee Rufo,
No.
trustee Ruiz,
Yes.
trustee Spalding,
No.
Chair Jinks,
No.
Vice Chair Cristaldi.
No.
Okay, that motion
Motion
didn't
fails.
carry. Now, based on the presentation of the artist, student, and the presentation by Interim President Corcoran, do I have a motion to approve the Mighty Banyans New College of Florida logo for use by New College as authorized by this Board of Trustees?
Is it possible to table that until the students are back on campus?
No.
Well, why would that not be
Motion,
possible?
you
Yeah.
can make a motion to table, and that motion would have to pass.
So I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until the students are back on campus and there can be more ample consultation with students.
Second.
You can call that on a voice vote.
Okay, we'll call that on a voice vote. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Meaning, all in favor of tabling?
No, yes, in favor. All
Aye.
opposed to tabling, say aye.
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 Pardon me?
Okay, so we're opposed to tabling, so,
You have to say
Had a
nay instead of
proper-
aye.
no. Well, actually, you do like sign, so, but
Yeah, she
Could
called
we
it
redo
correctly.
I called
that?
it correctly.
In the beginning, it was interrupted. Could we do that again?
No.
No,
Why not?
the motion to table this was not carried by the board. So,
Can I motion to approve the official mascot?
yes, we need a second.
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor? Let's go a voice vote for in favor.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Bauerlein,
Yes.
Trustee Jaco,
Yes.
Trustee Carp,
Yes.
Trustee Keenan,
No.
Trustee Kessler,
Yes.
Trustee Mackey,
Yes.
Trustee Reed,
No.
Trustee Rufo,
Yes.
Trustee Ruiz,
Yes.
Trustee Spalding,
Yes.
Chair Jinks, Chair Jinks,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cristaldi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I know we're over time, if I might, I just wanted to express my pleasure with the rendering and thank the student for a fantastic presentation. I think it's very unique. I've never seen anything like it before, and I think I love the banyan as imagery of this place. It invokes some good historic feelings of me studying under the banyan trees out near College Hall, and so, well done, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so that,
I'm sorry, just if I could add, and I don't know if this is even necessary to say this, but I mean, could we make sure that when the board does this, we should invite the student support of it and as an overall mascot?
to what, to?
It's just a comment.
To change it so we have one mascot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We need, you know.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for staying over. That concludes our business of this Board of Trustees meeting, and we are adjourned.
New business?
No business. We're done, out of time.